Huh?
Pickleball sound.
Yes. Yes, it's going to serenade us for a while, I think. And
Thank you. I've requested the doors open. We have these doors open.
Oh, yeah, no, that's fine. It's just we hear about the pickleball, like,
We were just talking
all
about
the time.
okay, so welcome everybody. It's 5:07 and we now have a quorum. And so is Brian joining us?
He's in the back room. He is joining us, just not in the room.
Oh, okay, okay. So Brian, will you take roll call, please?
Yeah, Chair Akins,
Here.
Convery, she's absent.
Convery is absent.
Commissioner McHatton
Here.
and Commissioner Prebor.
Here.
Okay, so,
Reminder to turn your mics on when you speak, thanks, and then turn them off.
okay, and just a recognition that we did not call Commissioner James' name. Commissioner Valerie James resigned yesterday, and so she had a variety of reasons that she felt like she needed to do that. I talked to her yesterday to thank her for the service that she's given to us, and so we will move on at some point. But right now, if you'll please stand and follow me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready to begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay. Public communications. Public communications is the time set aside during the Historic Preservation Commission meeting for members of the public to address the Historic Preservation Commission on items of city business other than scheduled agenda items. Matters raised at this time may be briefly discussed by the commission and will generally be referred to staff and/or placed on a subsequent agenda. Under state law, other than for emergency items, no action can be taken at this meeting. So, Brian, do we have any public comments that aren't aligned with any of the items on our agenda?
No, we do not.
Okay, great, thank you. So, museum representative report. I've been out of town for 4 days watching Grandsons 4 and 1. If I fall asleep, that's the reason why.
That's why you haven't shaved.
Actually, I generally shave twice a week before church on Sunday and Thursday mornings because we work with a group. But I am getting ready for Saturday, okay?
Oh,
Scruffy hair and a beard.
inmate.
Just letting you know I'm getting ready for that role. So a big thing that's going on at the museum is they have their Ojai Studio Artists exhibit that I think is coming down shortly. But this Saturday, I think I saw that they are doing a kind of a pop-up. I know that's a pop-up exhibit, and this is on the Mandela because the Mandela is experiencing is it 30 years? 30 years, I believe. And so the museum they're coming over and they're kind of doing a mini exhibit that will go on that will talk about the history of the Mandela. There we go. And so I'm looking forward to it. It'll be a great exhibit. So come by and see it at the museum. Okay, consent items. We'll go to the minutes of the September 8th regular meeting. Okay. Okay. Does anybody have any changes? So let me point out the one thing that I thought should be included. So if you go to page 2 of 4 of the minutes under speakers, it mentions Council Member Susan Francina. I think she was speaking as an individual rather than a council person. And I think maybe that should be noted in the minutes.
You're on page 2
Two.
of 4?
2 of 4?
Item 2.
Yes. Item 2 down at the bottom, speakers.
Thank you.
Does that seem to make sense? It seemed like she was speaking more of an individual.
Well, we'll note that in here, that even though she's a council member, that she was speaking as a member of the public.
Yes, great, thank you. That was on the Annual Historic Preservation Award and Lifetime Achievement Award. By the way, that item is for debate and recognition, hopefully by council. When I talked to Gail a couple meetings ago, she said that would be coming forward in the October 27th council meeting. Hopefully at that meeting, they will recognize the 2 Lifetime Achievement members in the 1 annual meeting. And then hopefully that will be, tradition is that those are presented in the 1 and only meeting that's in December. So again, the second meeting in October for City Council is when Gail thought that would come before the council. Okay, let's see. I am.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes with the one change with Sousa Francina.
Okay, I'll second that.
Okay, Brian, call roll, please.
Akins,
Yes.
McHatton,
Yes.
Prebor.
Yes.
Great, thank you. Voting is unanimous. Okay, moving back to our agenda. Okay, so on the discussion item, item number 2 is discuss a 1-week extension for the Ojai Jail Arts Initiative, art installation and exhibition. We've talked about this. They opened up that exhibit last Sunday, and they had an open house event that I heard went well on Saturday, but they opened that up on Sunday. I talked to Commissioner Convery this morning. She said they were having some difficulties in staffing the exhibit on the times that they've set out. I think they're 10 to 5 or 10 to 6 during the week. And so that may be why they're not here tonight. But if they show up later, then I reserve the right to bring it back if that's okay with everyone else.
I think that the question is, or the discussion is going to be whether, how the commission feels about them extending it for a week.
It
So
is.
perhaps we can discuss this, or you can discuss this without them present.
Yeah, I think that would be okay.
Them being present is just kind of a plus, but
Okay.
it's really, how does the commission favor, do you favor extending it a week?
Yeah, no, I think that's an excellent point. So again, just a note for the record that the invitation was extended to them, and they're not here yet or unable to be here.
Right, and they may not be.
And they
so
may
the
not be.
commission can continue the discussion about a 1-week extension at this time.
So that they want that.
They're requesting an extension of a week.
Okay.
They are, and they made that request to me. I've been going down there when they needed to call in. Elizabeth or Teddy or Matt will call me and say, hey, we need to get in. And so they approached me at the last time I was down there. They have now, and that's a good thing, they have now worked it out with the city for them to get a key from the city. And so they're doing all of this on their own. So again, the thought that Elizabeth brought to me was that they wanted to extend it 1 more week. Currently, its authorization is for it to go through the 16th, through the Sunday after Ojai Day. That was approved by us. And so, as Mar points out, the question to us is, are we in agreement with extending it a week? Do we have issues about that, and how do we feel about that? So I'll open it up to discussion. Brian, we don't have any public comments on this, do we?
No, not online.
Okay, do we have any staff?
No, nothing other than what I've already said.
Okay, great. Thank you, Maura. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Gina, yes.
I-
Commissioner McCann.
I don't see any downside. I mean, is there any reason, unless it was detrimental to the health of the structure, which I can't imagine it would be, I don't see why we wouldn't want to extend it. I mean, nothing's attached to it. They're doing everything that we asked. So if it's to their advantage to extend another week, I don't have a problem with that at all.
Okay, thank you.
I agree. I mean, it actually opened on Saturday.
Mm-hmm. Oh, it did, okay.
So Saturday morning it opened, and I went over Saturday, and there was a lot of people there. You know, it was, I don't know when I went, maybe around 4.
Microphone, please.
Oh, sorry.
thank you.
And maybe I went around 4. So I don't know what they're doing for staffing, but I think that if they can staff it, that they should leave it open for sure. And this Sunday, they're having the artists speak. So to have it open 1 week following when the artists speak, and Ojai Day when people will see it, you know, if, like 2% of the people that see it on Ojai Day want to come back, that's great. So I say definitely leave it open.
Great.
What are your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I haven't been, went down there Friday. Then went out of town. I could see the material one that's hanging that has been, is up there. It has wires with protective, from the branches and that. And so that's pretty much all I saw. I peeked in the jail and was able to see some of the items that they have in there. I'm looking forward to seeing it myself.
It's really beautiful. It's really special.
Yes, my family we rode bikes on Sunday, so we saw it as well.
Wonderful. Either of you two been there yet?
Not yet.
Well, come on down on Ojai Day.
I will
Definitely,
be
it's-
there on Saturday.
Okay. I think we will be too. Okay, no, I am in agreement with what both commissioners have said, so I think we want to make a motion then.
You know,
Or what?
This isn't an item on the agenda for a motion and a vote. It was more of a discussion item, and I'm looking at you because, what are you looking at me for? No, well. I think
If
it's an
if the
informal
commission wants to do a straw poll, you're more than welcome to
Right.
to identify support.
Right, it's not a formal vote as an action item. However, if you want to do a straw vote, like Lucas said, then you can. And I think the fact that you're all in favor of them extending it for a week is really all that matters.
So it's okay with the city. It's okay with you guys.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, and it's something that the commission originally approved, and the timing went along with that. So it's appropriate for it to come back to you and say, hey, can we leave it up for another week? And you're all in favor of it, and so
Okay.
that's really all we need.
Okay, and we are.
Good. We are.
Great.
Okay.
Thank you.
So-
I will
Everyone go.
let Elizabeth and or Teddy or Matt know, and I'm sure we'll know more on Saturday when we go over there. Okay, thank
And
you.
I'll also reach out to them.
Excellent.
As your rep. Okay.
Excellent, thank you. Okay, item number 3, Ojai Day discussion. I like props because then people remember them. So I had my wife bring out my hat, getting into the role of convict on the weekend. So Ojai Day, we did a schedule at our last meeting. Yes, Gina,
Did we write it?
she was.
Did
But
we
was
write that down?
We did,
Yeah, I think Valerie, though, was in that schedule, right? That
yes.
might have
Because I
to,
couldn't remember what time I was. I know that I was early, so I could go before I opened up the shop.
we might have to stretch that out, though, now, the times, or,
Well, I'm not sure if Cindy was in there. Cindy is tied up right at the beginning because her dance group is doing a dance at the Mandala.
Okay.
I may send someone to go film that for
Yeah.
us. And so she said although not at the meeting tonight, she said she would be here after that and available at the jail,
Well,
so.
the kids should also be there too. I mean, Elizabeth will probably be there,
Mm-hmm.
and Teddy and Matt too. So, you know, we do
I-
have some
I-
backup.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to just rely on them because we do get a lot of people come by there, so I don't want them to have to.
Well, I can
Field it
go.
all.
I can go on the earliest shift.
Can we have a refresher of the schedule? Because I think we might have to alter it without Valerie.
I'm going to excuse myself and get the schedule that was agreed upon
Thank you.
at the last meeting.
Okay, great. Thank you.
The other thing too is, I mean, is it a set time? Like, could we just be there earlier? Do we think we'll get people earlier? Like, if
You-
I can only go early, can I go an
Oh, of
hour early
course.
and stay?
Yeah, I
You
think
know
that's
what I mean?
fine.
Like, it may, I mean, I don't know what time Ojai, it seems like people start wandering around really early with the cars and it's.
True. I mean, Ojai Day is from 10 to 4, so
Right.
y-
Okay.
I mean, you can expect people to be there before. People are going
So
to be
we need
wandering
to be
around
there
earlier.
at
The
9:30.
mandala doesn't necessarily start at 10. It's going to be open and available earlier than that. So,
I mean, I can be there at 9 or 9:30 if it's helpful and do the early shift.
I talked to Weston Montgomery, and he is kind of the person that's overseeing Ojai Day. And so he thought that our chairs and table would be available. They're going to start getting those set up at 9 o'clock, so I plan to get there at 9 o'clock.
Okay, then I'll do that too.
Do you know if there's the brochures that we usually have that Sherry has for us? The ones with the.
They're supposedly in that box.
I was wondering, is it the
I
box
was
of the
waiting for them to
leftover?
clean the jail before I reached in there.
Because I know that one we had a lot left over of, and the other one we had almost run out
I
of.
love those. We have to, I mean, I know it's just another piece of paper that we're printing, but people really, really love the brochures.
Yeah.
I did mention to Weston that we passed those out, so.
I mean, we don't need to have like the Mills Act one there, just a few, because that's not the audience, but like the walking tour, that sort of information.
The billboard, the board that has all the,
Yes, yeah, to put that out.
okay.
The other thing to acknowledge and give thanks for is, I'm not sure exactly who did it, but they took the falling over wood display case there and have now replaced it with what looks a beautiful metal one. They actually took the same graphic that was in the wood one that was falling over and then replaced that in the metal one that's there, and it's very pretty.
Okay, I'll have to go see that.
Yeah, very pretty. It is kind of
Are
a
they allowed to have
dark
metal?
wood type, really dark wood, almost like a dark walnut kind of color. It's not wood, but the metal is.
Okay.
Remember, my wife's the
Is that
color
okay?
person, not me.
Signage People. Well, I'll go down and look at it.
Okay. Yeah, it turned out really beautiful, especially again, the wood one was falling over. So kudos to Public Works or Weston or whoever did that.
I think we're going to be favored with better weather than we've had in previous years too. So
75.
you won't be sitting in 110-degree temperature with that with the jail coat on. So
Yeah.
Well, it goes with one of the art projects too. You know, there's one of the artist's projects are painted figures, headless painted figures, and one's a jailbird. You saw that.
Uh-huh.
One's a jailbird and one's a sheriff. I have a picture of myself behind.
Oh, yeah, Cindy sent me copies too, so wonderful.
It'll be fun. I think having the art there just is a brilliant to do it on Ojai Day. I think it'll be really fun. There'll be lots to talk about. People will, have a lot of fun there. And the artists might be there too.
Yes, and they're wonderful local artists.
Yeah,
so.
yeah.
It
It's
was always nice to meet with them and hear their ideas.
So have you looked in the box yet, Brian? Do you know if there's flashlights in there? Do we
I have
need-
not looked in the box. Again, I talked with Weston about the flyers and the brochures and the flashlights, and so he was taking care of those
I mean,
things.
everyone has a phone. I mean, flashlights, so, you can just say, use your phone's light to.
Yes, absolutely. How we doing there, Mara?
Did you say, what am I doing or how am I doing?
How we doing?
Well, a little flustered looking for September's. I know I wrote down the schedule that you all
No, you sent an email.
Is it not in the minutes?
No, I
No,
know.
the minutes
Oh,
are,
No, it's not in the minutes.
Minutes are not detailed enough for that. So,
I totally get the pickleball thing.
Well, everything's,
I suggest that we go on to the next discussion, and as I'm also paying attention to the next discussion, that I see if I can find this, and if I can't, then I think that we need to make another schedule. I'm very sorry about that.
We're all here, and Cindy, and, we just figure out what Cindy can do.
yeah,
If that- if-
out to us, and then we can add, we can send what's available for us back to you.
Okay, and that would happen tomorrow morning, because we're talking about Saturday, this Saturday. Yeah, so yeah,
Well, I can be there at 9, and I can stay,
Microphones, please.
or if you wanna stagger me and have Brian there at 9. I usually try and open the shop at 11. What do you think? Do you need me there at 9, or would you rather have me at like 9:30?
Yeah, if you get there 9:30 or 10, that should be fine.
Yeah,
9 o'clock, we're just pretty much waiting for the tables and chairs and to get set up.
Yeah, and I can hang out until.
We will have a tablecloth.
I just should open before noon.
Oh, okay.
so
Yep.
you will be there then between 9:30 and 10, and you will stay until 11:30?
I can stay till 5 to noon.
Okay.
I think we had it set up to where it was an hour and a half for each shift, and there was a half-hour overlap. So again, that will be in the paperwork from our last meeting.
Are we counting on 3 of us or 4 of us?
4 of us,
Should
because
be-
Cindy said she'll be there. Again,
No, did she have a preference, or when is she dancing?
10 o'clock, and she said after that she would be available throughout the day.
Oh, okay, good. We'll be fine, and I'm
So-
only in the arcade, so does it have to be really hard in stone, or can we communicate throughout the day?
Microphone,
Well,
please.
we can certainly communicate tomorrow via email. I'll set up something fluid, send it out, you'll respond, and then if the 4 of you make changes during the day, of course, that's of course appropriate.
Okay,
Just, it's your day, so.
I mean, I can put back in 5 on my shop and buzz down there.
Right. So,
Come back an
Commissioner
hour later.
McHatton and Chair Akins, would you like to give me some times now to put into the mix, or?
Okay, my plan was to be there at the beginning and at the end.
And
Beginning
so
and at the
that would be
The early
9.
shift and the late shift.
So 9 to 10 maybe?
So 9 to 10 and then 3 to 4? Or
9 to
what-
10:30, and then 2:30 to 4.
Okay, so I'll be, 10 to noonish.
Okay. I'm putting you 10 to 11:45.
Okay,
And then Commissioner McHatton?
I could do either the one right after that or the one after that, so just, let's see what works better for Cindy, and I mean, yeah, either one works out. I'm gonna be there all day.
Okay.
okay.
I will start this tomorrow morning then in an email, so if people can check in on the email, that would be great.
Sweet. Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Okay, item number 4.
And he takes his hat off.
I do. I want to wear it out. Okay, item number 4, proposed local downtown historic district ad hoc committee's progress report, staff report.
Well, at the September 8th meeting, okay, Chair Akins provided an update that the proposed local downtown historic district was to be discussed at the next city council meeting, which would have been September 13th. There was also a discussion regarding if non-contributing properties should remain in the proposed local downtown historic district or not, and that Commissioner McHatton said that maybe there would be more of a formal discussion at the next meeting regarding a change, and that would be
Is your
That-
mic on?
tonight. You did not hear me. Okay, can you hear me now? Okay, I'm going to repeat that.
Okay.
Okay. No, it's fine. So Chair Akins provided an update that the proposed local downtown historic district was going to be discussed at the next city council meeting, which would have been September 13th. There was also a discussion regarding if non-contributing properties should remain in the proposed local downtown, historic district, it's a mouthful, or not. And Commissioner McHatton said that there might be more of a formal discussion at tonight's meeting regarding a potential boundary change. And with that, whether or not non-contributing properties stayed in. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to the commission and or ad hoc committee to update and discuss.
You seem like you're getting ready to have a discussion over there still as a part of the staff report.
No, I mean, I'm here to answer any questions that the commission may have tonight.
Okay, great. So any questions from the commission to the staff?
No.
Okay. Brian, do we have public comments?
No, there are none.
Actually, I do have
Oh,
one bit of
hang
comment.
on, time out.
When I said non-contributing, I didn't mean all. Oh, here, is that better? When I said non-contributing, whether or not to be included into the map, it didn't mean all of them. It just meant talking with the State Historic Preservation Office. They said that you didn't have to think so much as continuity as you had to think of to have it make sense and have that support. And if you had to maybe not have it gerrymandered a little bit, if it made more sense in order to move it forward. And so it was just a discussion that I wanted to have with everybody, but it wasn't like, let's remove all of the non-contributing. It was just kind of wanted to pass along what I was learning.
Great, thank you.
Brian, can you make that clear what she was saying? What did she say exactly?
Last month in the discussion, we were talking about different ideas on what to include, what not to include. And one of the things was the non-contributing. There's the three different levels: the contributing landmark, the contributing, and the non-contributing. And so there was a discussion last month on whether to include those or remove those from the downtown historic district. And that's what the discussion was last time.
No.
No, I mean, that's why we're meeting today. So, to see if it's brought up, if anything took place since that meeting last time. Okay. So, public comment? Do we have public comment?
No, there are none.
What? Well, yeah, we usually do the people in the audience before we ask for the people. Okay.
Good evening.
Uh,
How are you? I know this has been a really, the mic, you can't hear me. Okay, I know this has been a really difficult item for everybody. And I know you guys work really hard and do a good job just listening to this whole thing on the jail and that art exhibit. It's wonderful that you do put that time in and do that creative work for that. The thing is, on this one item, the historic district, I have a lot of skin in the game. And when you do, you look at it from a different point of view. You are highly affected. And the thing that I wanted to find out, and you can answer these questions for me, let's say someone now you have to go before planning, and you have to go before city council if you're going to do something major on your piece of property. If this becomes a historic district, do you also then have to go before the HPC? In other words, do you get a comment on what is being done if we become a historic district, as much as we still have to do planning and we still have to do city council? That's one question. True or false?
Oh, sorry, didn't realize it
Yeah.
was a true or false.
If you could ask all your questions, we'll write them down, then we'll respond.
And respond later?
No,
Okay.
we'll respond after. the
Oh,
questions
okay,
have been
okay,
asked and
yeah, that
public
is
comments.
that is definitely a question. And the thing that I feel on this is also, it needs to be made clear to those people, because I was at your meeting when you had that lady come from out of town, I don't remember her name, who is the expert on historic districts. And the point she made, she's done this a lot, that this entire thing was created for many small towns that have become forgotten. And they have large structures within the town that are basically vacant. And they don't have any tourism, and they want to revitalize their towns. One of the things about that is the city of Ojai does not need to be revitalized because there is nothing for rent. If you've put something up for rent, it's rented. So it's not like we need more tourism. We've got plenty of tourism. So the reasons why they created that one of her reasons was that. She said it was a revitalization of forgotten towns. Since I'm the only one, I'll take all these other people's. and the other question that on that, the point she was making is, she said, actually, if you have a large building, like let's say it is the Oaks, the El Roblar, or the theater, they probably could go to the Mills Act, either get a tax break or help if they put $100,000 in. When you take the majority, stop it. When you take the majority of the small stores in town, they will not, and like she said herself, she said, they may help you replace a window if you're willing to go through all the paperwork. So it doesn't make sense for, I would say, 80% of the people in the historic district. So I think it'd be, when you're clarifying to the stores, or the buildings, or the different properties, I think it's very important that you don't mislead them into thinking that they're going to get a tax break, or under the Mills Act that they're going to get in and be able to go and rebuild their whole store and have people help them out, because it's not true. So I think there is a lot of misassumed information out there, and I just think because nothing's been clarified, and I think it's important. So that's it. You can answer those.
Can I
Okay?
take the second question?
Yes.
So when she came, she spoke about the nation, and the nation isn't going to reflect
She talked about did you say
the
nation?
nation, the whole, it was a national
Yes, it
historic,
was a
so
national thing.
it was not geared toward us. It was almost unfortunate that the timing, because it did sound so cumbersome, because she's talking about federal tax incentives that aren't going to apply to us, some state ones that may not apply to us, a lot of things that were way bigger than what we are in Ojai. So the timing of that, it was educational for commissioners, but as far as for merchants or property owners, it was really not very helpful, because it doesn't apply to us in most situations.
Right.
The idea is, there's a lot of historic towns in California, let's just say California alone. And a lot of them are historic based on age or based on something that happened there, something. But we are in such a unique situation because there's not very many small towns that are this well preserved by famous architects in a small area, and in this very compact telling of a story that tells the story of California in the way that Ojai does. What you would to be a property owner, I know when I started this, and then COVID happened right when we started working on this behind the scenes with Craig Walker and Brian and myself, I knew that it was going to be hard on property owners to go through a pandemic. It was going to be hard on merchants. And my whole focus was it had to be merchant friendly. It had to be property owner friendly. And by doing that, what we really wanted to work on is, changing the Mills Act to where if you're part of the downtown district and you're contributing, that you could go into a Mills Act contract. What that would mean is you would get 40 to 60% off of your property taxes. If you've kind of been in here a long time, it's not going to be as big of a significance as if you recently purchased and it depends on what your property taxes are. But you can use those instead of just giving them that you'd have to pay them anyway. You would be able to look at it and go, okay, my electrical needs work, or it's earmarked for repairs. And it's earmarked because you need a new roof, or you need to redo the windows or do upkeep. And you would make that plan yourself. You would say, these are this 5 years, and these are what I want to get done, because I want to have this building look nice, and I don't want to put out extra expense to do it, so I'll have this Mills Act to allow me to do that. So that's the Mills Act. And that would just need a code change to say that it would be for contributing properties as a historical resource within the downtown district, not just the landmarks. So that
It
was
would be for
something-
contributing properties, not non-contributing.
Right, contributing. So that would be the advantage of being a contributing. The other thing is we wanted to work with planning. Sorry, I'm not used to being, this is the first
Wanted
time.
to work with what?
This is the first time I've been in chambers since COVID, and I didn't realize it's so much easier to talk on Zoom without this mask. But anyway, I have to be careful because I have compromised immune system. So if I'm talking, you can't hear me, just please let me know. But we want to work with planning to make it so we can reduce or eliminate any fees when you want to do something to your property. And this is not something that we came up with. This is, Santa Barbara does it. I mean, all the cities do it. If you're a historical resource, you're doing something for us. You're helping keep the story intact and keep this downtown available for the future generations. So, you have Mills Act, you have reduction of fees or elimination, hopefully, and then there's all these different overlays, and you have to keep coming through everybody when you want to get something done. We also wanted to work to try to simplify it, so you're not jumping through that many hoops and coming through so many different commissions and boards and things every time you want to get something done. Those are the things that are the most important, because if we can't get merchant and we can't get parcel owner buy-in, and if there's no benefits to them on a tangible level, I could see how it would be hard to buy into it, because it just seems cumbersome. It's one more thing you have to go to the city so what we're asking the property owners is to move us forward long enough to where we can try to make these things happen. And then if they don't happen, and it'll go to another second vote, and if you see that we didn't come through, or we came through and you realize it is what you want, or you still don't want to be a part of it, then you would be able to oppose it then. But to let us see if we can get these things done, because these are things that are, especially now with construction costs and all of these things that are going on in the world as far as costs going up, it would be nice if we can make it simple, simplify the costs, and reduce or eliminate fees.
Gina, that all sounds very good, but I think you're getting the cart before the horse. You need to first, before you have anybody say yes on anything, make sure that they don't have any fees, that they don't have to attend meetings, that they don't have to go through approvals. If you go out and say, look, if there will be no fees, you do not have to go to an approval like you do the planning and the city council, and you can just go right on doing what you've always done, you may have somebody listen, but you need to get that done first.
That's the problem. It's like this,
You
chicken
can't
or
do
the
it
egg
backwards.
thing. It's
Nobody's going to go for it.
It's like this, the letter went out.
You're asking people to trust government, which is notorious for not
I know.
changing before it
That's why-
happens. And no one would do that.
That's why there's that second time.
Pardon?
That's why there's two separate
But
votes.
it's
There's
still,
one-
you need to do that initially.
Okay,
Si-
yeah.
That's
so-
my whole
so-
point of being here.
I understand. So the question has been answered by Commissioner McCatton, but there are other questions that you asked and other answers and information that I'll provide when we get to my part. But going to staff, you wanted to, I think, did you want to answer any of these questions?
The first one, I think.
Okay, I believe that would be
That's very
correct.
important.
Yeah, in terms of you're talking about the process, in terms of what
Yes,
it is now
process.
and what it potentially is going to be
Yes.
in the future. If there's no
Yes.
changes and you're simply looking at a historic district being placed in that area within the boundaries that have been provided both by staff and by the ad hoc in two separate letters identifying where those boundaries are at. The reality is that yes, there would be, if it's a contributing site or if it's identified as a historic site, you would be going to this body. The difference with that is, for instance, Hotel Roblar, when they had their historic resources report provided, this body provided comments on that report, the historic resources report, but didn't act on any of those changes per se, but provided those comments that then were forwarded to the Planning Commission. That's embedded within the code currently. And that was as a result of the existing state designated historic district that's already in, which is already in play.
Yeah.
But that really doesn't go to the same boundaries of what this historic district as it's proposed would be. This one balloons out to the north, to the south, where the state designated district is really just the properties that touch Ojai Avenue. It's a part of another project.
So you need to answer I'm
Yeah,
not
the
understanding
first
answer.
part is that, yes, you would have to come before this body if it's a major project, meaning that there are factors that potentially are contributing that are impacted. If it's minor, in terms of minor changes, then that would then potentially be at staff level. We would still provide both the commission and council with the determination, as we do with other items that my staff takes provides for a determination on. But the only way that a minor project would be before this body is if it's appealed or it's called up by this body.
So there's still process, though.
Well, yes, but in all the minor work permits that I've seen since I've been here in 2019, 0 have come before this body. All have
Because
been handled at staff
we're not a
level.
historic district as well.
Yeah, but I'm saying that's a two-step. So it's either if it's a minor improvements or modifications that are made that are maybe not necessarily.
What's
there's-
minor? What's minor?
I can't necessarily get into
That, well, no, but that's important.
details of it.
it's
Minor would
all
be-
it's subjective, that's all in the,
yes and no. I mean, design is a lot of design is subjective. I agree
yeah,
with that.
totally.
So, like for instance, if one of the buildings was looking at doing some fencing, looking at modifying some of their fencing on the backside, and it's within that historic district, it's a contributing site, potentially it would be a minor work permit, potentially. And then we would process it through staff. There'd be the 15-day review period by this body and then a 10-day appeal period. And then if there's nothing that's received by either council or the commission, then
Because
it's
it has
deemed
to go
approved.
before them too.
No, doesn't have to go before them. We provide them with the determination, and then they have the authorization to either call the item up within that time period or let it lie as it is.
Can I give you an
Doesn't-
example? Because I think we're kind of in a little bit in a circle. For example, a number of years ago, when I had my shop, so you're familiar with my stores, they had crisscross windows in them, which was very bad for visual. And I just took them out and put straight windows in. I didn't come to the city, I didn't do anything, nor did they've been in there for 20 years now. But if I did that, that could be called, that's a major visual change because the windows were all crisscrossed, now they're major solid glass. That would not be considered minor. And I would have to go and say, well, really, let me say, I don't see, yeah, but that looks really cute the way it is with the little crisscrosses. And and I'm saying, but God, you can't see my clothing, I really need to change. So I'd get into one of these whole things. This is why I'm thinking the devil's in the details. Yeah, the devil's in the details.
Just so you know, it's a two-step process for something that you're describing right there. It would both be the Historic Preservation Commission that would be reviewing it if it's within the historic district or it's identified as a landmark. In addition to that, it would be going to the Planning Commission for design review as well.
Right. I know, painful. Okay, that's the point I'm making. I see.
The reality is if it's not in the district,
But anything on Ojai Avenue is in the district.
yeah, exterior changes like that, more often than not, would be coming before the Planning Commission at the very least. If it's a landmark site, you can certainly expect it to come before this body as well.
And you said anything on Ojai Avenue, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's probably discretion to that if it was something very minor. It's devil's in the details, right? I think it's on a case-by-case scenario.
I mean, I just listened to what David Berger went through over door frame colors.
Right, and that one is a landmarked building, so, and it has character-defining features that this body certainly looked through, and staff certainly went through
I remember.
process. Yes.
Okay, thank you for answering.
Can I
Yes,
say
yes.
something? Can I make a comment?
Sure.
I think that.
Microphone, please.
What Barbara's saying.
Mike.
I don't think that anyone wants to go through what we just went through with El Roblar and with the Playhouse and David. And, you know, the uncomfortableness of that whole scenario and those various meetings, and I think Randy, as a council member, would agree, was really, really tough. And I think that, you know, my feeling is that since that, or prior to that, and then since that, that everyone, the staff and the council and our group, and I don't know necessarily about planning, does not want the process to be this, you know, heart-wrenching. I mean, it's just so tough and to take so long. So, you know, I think that applies to even projects that are not in historic building and on the main street, but in our town. I mean, and I will, you know, just say with my property, my project took so long to get approved that I couldn't even realize my project because the price doubled. So, you know, I think all over that everyone's feeling that, and I think that Lucas is, you know, with his staff, you know, everyone's looking for ways to kind of cut the process down. Yeah, that was really a lot for both those buildings. And, you know, when you look at, you know, the cost, if we talk to David and El Roblar about how much, you know, those delays and things have cost them, you know, it's enormous.
Yeah.
It's enormous. So, that, I mean, Lucas, you might want to speak to that. And, you know, I think that reform and, you know, taking a more progressive approach is on the agenda for our city staff. The other thing that I wanted to say about the historic district, and it's hard to really, you know, talk about this with how everything must have a process, and there are very specific things, but in a way, the state has already declared our downtown an historic district. Like, that's done. It's done. So what I think we as a city need to find is the benefits of us backing that up. So if they should tomorrow decide to take that away, can they build a freeway through our main street? If it's an historic district and we as a city declare it an historic district, maybe that can happen. I mean, do you know what I mean? Like, I think there's a bigger picture in us choosing to back up what the state has already decided without our choice. They didn't give us a choice. So I think that's
not
something
gonna
to look
happen,
at.
Jenny. They're not
Well,
gonna- yeah.
I mean, you know, that was an example, but I think that there is, you know, something that's valid in saying, you know, we as a city are going to make a decision that we're going to back up what the state just decided for us. So the other thing I want to say is I really feel a lot of this is about the spirit of the original, you know, coming together of the town. And I hate to get, you know, we're talking about such specific, like I said, the freeway, right? That's so specific. But I mean, Lucas, can you talk a little bit about that? About, like, you know, there is something that's meaningful for us as a city to declare this and feel the value of our town and reinforce the original spirit in which this town was built, which was creating historic buildings. I mean, they didn't reach out to these architects, which were already well known, because they didn't want to create something special. So I hate to lose that by all of, you know, I get everything you're saying about the windows and everything, but I I don't know, do you as, city manager have any comments on that about?
Well, I'm not the city manager, I'm the community development director.
You're the
But-
community development
Just
director.
wanna make sure we get titles correct.
Actually,
Correction, Brian.
yeah,
Got a promotion.
I want to jump into here, okay, because,
But you as,
community development director.
yeah, but as our city staff, you guys are the working parts behind all of this.
Well, we make sure that the process is followed. I think that's the important piece. It's this body as well as city council as well as the community that kind of hovers around, how that process plays out, right? Brian, I'll let you speak after I just say a couple of things here.
Okay.
To the point of process and historic districts, this town is 100 years old. And if you look at pictures from when it first was established versus today, especially the downtown area, it's relatively similar.
Same.
There's been some changes. I mean, if you look at, for instance, the theater, there's been some changes to that over the years, right? Hotel Roblar, obviously, we were intimate with that document, with the Historic Resources Report, and kind of understood the history of that building over the last almost 100 years. So have there been changes? Yes. Are they significant? I mean, that's certainly up for debate and discussion. We have design standards already in place for a majority of the Ojai Avenue corridor area, the downtown area, certainly. I think some of those are 20 years old, and they've certainly served this community well. I don't know what would have been done previous to that to ensure the safety and security. Probably standards that we already had in place regarding objective design standards and potential changes that could have been done over the last 60 to 80 years before those design standards really kind of came into play. So it's interesting to see over the last 100 years that there have been changes to some of the buildings I gave as examples. But if you really kind of look at the downtown area, it's
The same.
well, I don't know necessarily want to say the same,
It's
but
improved, actually.
but there's also
And that's
measures
not
to
an
the
accident, though.
not by accident. I think it's a happy result of a lot of careful planning and preservation by founders and then beyond. I think there's definitely a lot of that going on if you look at the history, and I think certainly in talking with historians and individuals who are intimate about the history of this city will agree with that. Well, mostly agree with it. But there's also ways. So that's that side to the piece. There's also the side where a historic district helps to further preserve that, but also provide benefits to that as well. I think that's an important piece. I know Gina was speaking to that. Brian was speaking to that as well. Understand that I'm not necessarily taking sides here. I'm just providing factual information and information here. Staff isn't taking a position, but definitely providing the information on both sides. And so the historic district itself then provides and lends itself to some advantages. Obviously, the Mills Act and the tax benefits that come with that is one. There's state subsidies that you can go after as well. Do those require a process? Yes. Does it require work on the property owner's side? Yes. Are there measures and groups out there that can help with that process? Yes. I know I've had conversation with Gina and Brian offline to kind of understand what that looks like, and they're learning as well as I am as this process continues to evolve. And there's certainly benefits to it, but also with that benefit comes some of the requirements for those property owners to ensure that there's maintenance done and progress over the years. Mills Act is a good example of that, where there's a 10-year maintenance plan that just renews itself every year.
Okay,
None of that. Can I just say
going.
one quick thing? I'm sorry.
I'm going to jump in here because you're getting too far away from the questions that.
Yeah, but I thought I answered.
Actually, he's
No,
answered
I
it
think
very
all of
nicely.
this is great information. But
Yeah, I thought I answered the question
You did.
earlier.
You did. I'm not talking about that part. I'm just talking about. So a couple things, Barbara, and thank you for being here.
You're welcome.
You can stay up there if you want.
So Lucas answered question number one, I think, and the discussion took place on what the level is. And Jenny made a comment on El Roblar and on the theater. On El Roblar, Lucas knows that we were talking with the owner of El Roblar long before this ever became public and working with the owner of El Roblar. One of the things I told the owner of the El Roblar, Ramin himself, who I've known for quite a few years since he first came before the HPC back about 6 years ago, and Rose Boggs told him, "Sir, you just need to sell your house and move back to LA."
Yeah, that we don't want to go back.
Rose Boggs said that to Ramin.
That's not in the spirit of.
Yeah,
the
that
neighborhood.
Rose Boggs.
Oh, my God.
You know,
Yeah.
you know Rose, so yes. So, but
But he's still here.
he's still here. He's doing well. But so I told Ramin, and Lucas will back this up, as soon as you got a historic resources report, I had advised Ramin months and months and months before we even found out about the historic resources report, that it would behoove you, because he had been talking about the El Roblar being a historic hotel, for him actually to get a historic resources report so he could back up the historic thing.
He did.
Eventually he did it, several months later. But I told Ramin, and again Lucas was in this, as soon as he got a historic resources report, we, the HPC, would call a special meeting to get it processed. We did that. He came before us. We made a decision. We sent him on his way. We made recommendations to the Planning Commission. I try to follow anything that has anything historic or that we and made decisions with all the way through the process. So I went through all of the Planning Commission meetings all the way to the end. I can tell you all about valet parking, how many spaces were behind the old Caros. But so we stayed with him. We kept our promise, and our part of that was one meeting where we were deciding on what to put on the front. We, through our own decisions, ended up choosing the option that they recommended. But that wasn't done because it was what they recommended. It was done because of what we thought. But again, that meeting was done and they were on their way. So all of these things that happened way too much outside all the different things that were going on, those were,
They had nothing to do with you.
they weren't the Historic Preservation Commission.
And you just said something very important, Brian. You, Jeannie, you do appreciate the process and what it goes through, and you made it as painless as possible for Ramin and the crew. And the thing is, you are sitting on here right now. Once this becomes a historic district, it is a historic district in perpetuity for whoever else comes on and sits there, who may not look at it. People change. I mean, we have city council right now. I mean, the city council that we have right now, I'm not going to get into anything, but I mean, that will change eventually too. But, the town is at the mercy of those individuals.
That's correct.
And that's a scary thing. Once you become historic district, that HPC has the power, depending upon who's running it. You may be, very understanding and comprehensive of what they go, but that doesn't mean that everybody sitting in your position will be. It's honest to God.
I'm not sure that that's right. Right?
Well,
I mean,
look at the city council, what's happening.
Well, I'm just saying that, I mean, in regards to us, in regards to this commission, because you just said, Lucas just said that 20 years ago, a process was put in place that has allowed us to look at pictures from 100 years ago and pictures today and say, wow, how lucky are we that this is really, it's an authentic place. So I think that that's what we want to do. We want to keep it authentic. So my question, and I think it will relate to Barbara's, is that whatever that is that was there 20 years ago is going to be there if this is an historic district or not, correct?
Yes.
I mean, all of those what do you call them?
Overlays
Like,
and,
Regulatory process.
Yeah,
all
those
those
design
regulations,
guidelines.
right, is still going to exist. And it's not going to change that process by declaring it an historic district, is it?
Well, it adds another process. Excuse me, Lucas, that's your area.
I'm,
Adding another process, partially. I think really what it boils down to is let's use Hotel Roblar as the example. They weren't required to come to this body until it was identified that there was a state designated historic district. But still, we couldn't apply the municipal code in whole, meaning is it a minor work permit or a major work permit? That's really once you're in that box, you're like, okay, so the project that's being proposed, is it minor? Does it stay at staff level? Or is it major? Does it go to the Historic Preservation Commission? The fact that it was a historic district and we have a provision within our code that requires historic resources reports that are prepared, which was required because it is a state designated historic district. It requires this body to comment on that historic resources report, and then those comments then to be forwarded to the Planning Commission. Okay, and then the Planning Commission deliberates those comments through a memo. I think I ended up doing it or providing it within the staff report itself. But that's the process currently.
And fortunately,
If-
we have an understanding HPC for them.
Right. So if there was, let's just say, for instance, there was a local downtown historic district, then we look at the minor versus major. Then it's in one of those two buckets. And depending on the proposal would then depend on which process we end up going through. It no longer becomes since they're doing a historic resources report as required by state, we come before this body. We look at it from the standpoint of the work that's being proposed, regardless of whether or not there's either a historic resources report that's required or a modified or some sort of an update. We
that's
look
a
at the
very,
we
very
look
good
at the buckets.
clarification. That
We
is
look at
an
the buckets.
excellent clarification, what you just said. I think that's very helpful.
So, moving on. The Ojai Theater, Colette's daughter actually invited me into the theater 3 months before to meet David Berger. I've been working closely. I know David Berger, been talking with him, working with him for all these years that we've been involved with. He came before us because, as Lucas just said, the theater is a landmark. And when it was landmarked, it had character-defining features. These are the things that made it a landmark. Again, David wanted it to be landmarked. He's always wanted it to be a part of a historic district. He wants it to be essentially the entrance when people come to Ojai, come to the theater, and we have all of the information that you need to see. And I love that he has that focus for historic. But he came to us with specific items that he wanted to have to suggest, and there were and so what we worked together with him. Lucas was on that process. We had him in that meeting. One of the things was talking about the palette. They had Scott Titus with him. I've known Scott ever since he coached my son on Eagles football. Now he's 39, so you can tell how I just joked with him at a Nordhoff game. But he's very good. And so we talked about the different palette colors to work on a palette color. And I think it was Ramin that brought to me, if you look at the four corners, they have a different, again, I'm not the color guy, my wife's the color person. They have a different hue to it. So we were working to get a color that was acceptable to him, acceptable for being historic, and actually came to it. There were some other suggestions that we made. One that he wasn't in favor of. This is one that Commissioner Convery said. He said he thought about that some more that night and the next day, and then he actually called back and he said, I'd like to make a change that's more in line with what was suggested by the Historic Preservation Commission. So again, it was
That was
working
good.
with him.
That was nice, yes.
I don't think did we only have David in front of us once? Twice? Okay, twice. Knowing David, that's pretty good. And I love David. He's a good friend.
Oh, he's wonderful.
But, he's enthusiastic.
Yeah,
He really
But
is.
the issue the second time was about lighting, which wouldn't have anything to do with the fact that it was an historic district or not, correct? That's just.
It's a standard that we have in our code. I just wanted to just clarify the record. David Berger didn't own the property when it was landmarked. I
No,
cannot remember.
no.
Right. Okay. I just want to make sure that was clear.
Colette did.
Yes. Thank you.
Yes. Yeah.
So he inherited it. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, and so in the when I went in to meet David in the theater, it was completely stripped down all the way to the bottom. We met at some table way down at the front. We spread out because I'm surrounded with little ones.
I know this is a big thing in town. I know it is. And as a property owner, I don't want any more processes, and and I'm not saying that you obviously handled the hotel very nicely, and you handled the theater very nicely and helped them. I'm right next to all those people.
You are.
And somebody walked by and commented when I was painting the front of the building, and I saw red. Because I've painted my buildings in 42 years, how many times, and no one's ever said a word. And so my people came to me and said, oh my God, and I said, what? It's the same color, we've always had it. We're not changing the color. So, that was just like, whoosh, just like that. And, I don't even know who it came from or what it was, but I don't want to run into that. And I don't want to run, and I think that when I voice this, I am never going to need the Mills Act or the tax thing. I'm too small, and there's a whole group of us that are little people. We're the little fish in the pond. And the big guys have already come before you. We've had a very unusual 2 years with the theater and the El Roblar. Right. It's an amazing, all these things. The rest of us are very tiny little people. And I don't think it's going to benefit us. And I know you have a different thought on that because you're looking at the town as a whole. I think as a whole, the Planning Commission has done an excellent job with the city, council behind them. Nobody's gotten anything through that the city didn't want. And as we can debate, it's changed very little. It's improved. The town has continually improved. So I feel that we have enough, and with you controlling those absolute, if someone goes and tries to change an arch in the arcade, obviously, you come roaring down there, no one's going to change those arches. That is, historic. But individual people underneath, I don't know. I hope that they have more leeway. And all of us little guys on the other side of the street, it's just my feeling. It is not against anybody here, trust me. It really isn't. I know you're doing what you think is best, and I am too. And if I really thought people were going to come in and start doing weird things in town and making things ugly and terrible, I would be the first person to, stand up and start screaming about it. But everybody that's done everything in this town has improved. Dansky, Andrew Stassi took that building and put it back on so it matched the dry cleaners. He did that. It was amazing. Everybody that's done anything in this town seems to have had an attitude that have taken very cautious and careful that it works.
But
yes.
we did get lucky.
Pardon?
And we got lucky. That's
100 years is pretty better than
Yes,
luck.
but it's been luck and a lot of hard work from a lot of people.
Right.
But there are costs going up, and it's gonna. I know that you say that small people don't need Mills Act, but that's actually what it's for. It's for
We're too small to benefit.
like if you had a business and you paid $7,000 in property taxes, you could have 60% of that going to repairs. That would be a nice benefit to a lot of people that own properties in downtown. When we talk about like the state, there's this brand new one that's just funded. You don't have to ever do that unless you do want to jump through hoops and you do want to get that money. But there's nobody, we're not going to ever tell you, go jump through a bunch more hoops to get this thing. That would be something that the people would decide. Individual would decide how much that they, but as far as for us, it's just like, I don't know what happened with Osteo Monte Grappa when they had the electrical fire, but let's just hypothetically, if they needed electrical work, that could have been part of that Mills Act, where, maybe hypothetically, through COVID and through having to close, there just wasn't the funds to maybe do the upkeep that they wanted to do. If they had a Mills Act contract, that money that they would have to pay anyway is now earmarked to do something with it, to keep the upkeep of that building. Because you're doing something for the city by keeping this nice. Like if you had a leaky roof and you had a gallery, you're not gonna, it's gonna be a bad thing because the paintings will get ruined from the leaky roof. That Mills Act will help those small repairs. So it is more for that small person. It's not, Mills Act isn't really, I mean, it could be for people like Dale Roblar, but it is made for
But
for
it
individuals.
takes, it's a lot of paperwork, as your gal said, if people are willing to do that.
Yeah, and it's strange though. You know, we are passionate about what we do, but when you're in preservation, I've learned from the last couple of years, everybody is this passionate. Like, people are out there wanting to help you fill out paperwork for Mills Act, fill out paperwork for the Cal. I mean, there's people that's what we want to do is kind of find these resources, and help the the property owners with whatever they need, because you are doing a service to us, for our community and for the future, to keep these buildings nice. What can we do for you? And it's a partnership. And that's why I'm so glad you came, because I've been wanting to meet you, and I've been on Zoom for so long, but I feel like there's so much conversation I would love to have with you about what's the problem and how can we fix it. Because I do not believe there's nothing that can't be fixed. I mean, there has to be ways to simplify this. There has to be ways to,
Well, I think that's your
Understand it.
first thing, to figure that out, and then come back to people and say, look, this is how simple it is. Because at this point, it's still a stretch for, yes.
So I just want to say, in your, that was one of your very first comments.
Yes.
And Randy's here, and, we're now working on a vote that is pressuring you as a property owner to make a decision when you're telling us that you don't have all the information, and are we all in a position where this is just being pushed without having the information that requires you as a property owner to make the right decision? And I also, Brian and I had a conversation with Jamie Fleming, the head of the chamber, about how this affects, in my whole kind of spirit of the thing in businesses. I mean, I have 3 shops in town and I don't own any of them, so I have no say. But how does, and I'm a merchant, we're merchants, but other businesses in town, that maybe give tours or are an attorney or trying to attract clients, he does have some opinion about how the historic district and doing that will affect the business community and benefit the business community. And it has nothing to do with the color of paint. It's a whole
No,
different.
and that
so-
goes back to tourism, and we said that actually this town does not have a problem.
Well, it doesn't. It does not really go back to tourism, because my businesses are not dependent on tourists. But I think that talking with Jamie, I mean, perhaps some of it does, but it's about maintaining a solid business. So, but we don't. He's not here. I kind of wish that we had invited him.
I'm meeting with him tomorrow at
Yeah.
10 o'clock at Java Joe's. by
We
the way.
had an interesting conversation with him, and had I known you were going to be here, I would have thought to have him on the phone. But I think that that's another aspect. So, saying all of that, I mean, are there things that have not been defined enough to have a vote on this, on when
I think it's been
have the-
gone way too long,
have the
Jenny.
property owners pressured into voting?
Jenny, it's been going on for 7 months. It's not
7
comfort-
months.
It's
7
not-
months.
It's
I
not
mean,
that's a long time. It's not comfortable
people
for us.
work on these. Lucas, do you have
I
a
mean,
comment on
if you
that?
talk to property owners, they are really tired of it.
Well,
I mean, I think people work on these projects for years. It's
let me
too
ju-
important.
Yeah, let me just answer that. So the people that own the Ojai Library,
Right,
that would be the county of Ventura.
right.
It took me 3.5 months, and I know Matt Levere. 3.5 months to get into Matt Levere's office. I met with Matt Levere 6 weeks ago in the conference room just outside his office with he and Nancy Schramm, who is the Ventura County librarian. I called Nancy to get a update yesterday, and she sent me, well, it's still being worked, they're still looking at it, and feel free to contact us in a few months. So when people say, yeah, this has gone on too
But you
long.
know,
I mean, it's taking them.
I understand, but we have so many retailers in this core that are so, want this put to bed, want it done, want it over with. They really do. I mean, they really, really do.
Well, it doesn't have.
Then if, let's say you go and get all this stuff done that you're talking about, and then you come back and say, look it, we can guarantee you that if you put on a new roof and that new roof is $6,000, we'll sit here and do the paperwork for you, and we're gonna get you $4,000 back of that $6,000 that you put in that roof. And you do not have to go through us because we have completely expedited this entire thing that you, I mean, you need to get the act. It's not giving us information. We know what we know. The thing is, you need to get all your marbles in a row that say absolutely, this is what's going to happen. You do not have to come before us. The Mills Act, we have X, Y, Z that's going to fill out all your paperwork, and the Mills Act will absolutely guaranteed pay you 50% back, and you don't have to prove anything, come up with any study, nothing. Then if you have that kind of information, that's the information people like me are looking for. We're not looking for blank information like we possibly could do this. We're thinking we
So are
want to.
you able to vote without that information?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, well then there you go.
And we're,
Okay.
Absolutely.
So let me jump in here. Okay, so we went to the city council September 13th.
Right.
Okay, and the discussion item was item number 3. So I want people to know what we asked the city council on the night of the 13th. Proposed local downtown historic district status update and Historic Preservation Commission recommendations. The city council receives an update on the proposed local downtown historic district and considered the following Historic Preservation Commission recommendations. 1, decide if the city as a property owner wishes to vote now or later on the formation of a local downtown Ojai historic district. The city owns 7 parcels and has a single vote. When I came before the city council, I said that I was approaching them the same way I had approached about 17 other persons or organizations. 2, consider allowing contributing sites in the proposed local downtown historic district an exemption from the historic resources report, which is both expensive and time-consuming, $5,000 to $15,000 in 4 to 6 months, I think is my best estimate. An exemption from the historic resources report and processing fee requirements when proposing to Mills Act their property. And Gina already talks about the benefit having a historic structure is to a city, so why be charging them for that? And 3, and perhaps the most important that goes along with what we're talking about, 3 was asking them to consider the HPC recommendation that staff facilitate joint HPC Planning Commission meetings to discuss streamlining processes and removing barriers within a local downtown historic district. So there are currently 4 overlays in the downtown. You probably know this as well as anybody. I read all 4 of those at that September 13th meeting. Our goal in that item right there is to work with Planning Commission to come up with an overlay for the downtown historic district and make things simpler. So let me give you an example of this. So there is a couple that owns, I think, 6 of the businesses that are in the arcade.
Right.
They came to us last meeting or the meeting before. They wanted to fix the plaster on the outside. They wanted to do some highlights to the dark doors that are around theirs. They came to us in a meeting. They had Dan Placial, who is from Ventura. He came as their representative.
Arcade.
Huh?
I'm just saying it's the second half of the arcade.
Yeah, and so he came to us, and he had he had gone through the color palette with Amara. They were able to work out the colors that they wanted, which was interesting because Dan pointed out that our color palette is 20 years old. Something like that, 20 years old. And as far as he knew, we were the only ones that still had that book with the cards that have the different paint colors on it. And so Commissioner Convery suggested well, can we talk about updating the color palette for the arcade? Because again, it has its own overlay, and put it to where if they're using these colors, they don't have to come to us. And so that was one of the steps that we're trying to do to make it simpler. And I asked Dan when he left, I said, Dan, how was the process to you? And he was very happy with how he was treated. And again, they're trying to get current colors matching a 20-year-old palette. He had never been before the HPC before. He was happy with that. I talked to somebody today who knows Dan and said, call him and ask him and find out how you were treated. So we are trying to find a tax benefit to people. You said, well, that may not benefit people, but I'm looking, property tax bills are public. So I've gone and looked at, I'm looking at this property here. It is not on Ojai Avenue, but if I add the two amounts for their property taxes up, it's about $29,000.
But what you're saying is that absolutely, if this is a historic district, that people will get a reduction of 30-40% on their property taxes? That doesn't make sense.
No.
No.
It's
no.
through a Mills Act. So
you have to apply to the Mills Act, and then then you have to prove something about your property, and then they will say that we will, year in and year out, give you
Yeah, it goes to the assessor, the county assessor.
and the county assessor, and they decide.
But the process is, it's this body and then city council.
And-
That's the
okay.
process for the Mills
See, a
Act.
process.
And right now, in order to get a Mills Act, even if you're in a historic district, but not a local historic district, you're going to have to do a historic resources report. And again, 4 to 6 months, $5,000 to $15,000. The $15,000 was one of the larger projects.
So if we had already had an historic district, would that have been covered in the El Roblar case? Because he had to.
He's not applying for a Mills Act.
No, but you said that he needed to get an historic resource. Remember, you said that you advised him early on to get that?
Right, I did.
Right,
For
and then
us.
he didn't get it
He
until
did.
later.
Again, he was told he didn't need that at that time. And as Lucas said, that was, the prevailing thought until we discovered this little.
Yeah, there was no
State.
requirement up until we discovered, or it was made known that there was a down.
Caltrans, wasn't it?
Yeah,
Okay.
through the ATP, there was a requirement for a historic resources report to be done, a study to be done along
Right,
Ojai
but
Avenue.
if we
And that's
had,
what then was born, that downtown historic district.
but if we had
state
already
by the
been,
state.
if the city of Ojai approves an historic district on top of the state district, like we're talking about, would Ramin's company have had to pay for that himself, or would that have been sponsored by someone else? I mean, what did it cost? $20,000, $15,000?
Yeah, I mean, their historic resources report was about $22,000.
Okay, so would that have been on their dollar or someone else's if it was?
It's always it's on the applicant unless there have been opportunities where this body has made recommendations to city council, and the city council has said, yeah, we'll foot the bill for that one.
Okay, that's interesting. Okay.
That's a.
So,
I mean, that's, in a project like that, it doesn't
they're on
seem
a
like a lot,
case-by-case
but it's a
I
scenario.
lot.
mean, they are
Yeah.
so big in spending so
Yeah,
much money.
yeah, they're so big and spending so much money, but,
From a processing standpoint, if we're looking at it, no local district versus local district,
right,
no local district, the historic resources report was required because it was state designated, and having that conversation. I pushed the state historic resources personnel and required them to provide me with an official letter stating that there was, in fact, a historic resources report that was required for the state designated historic downtown district. Before that, I wasn't requiring it.
right.
Not until they came back and said, no, they shall. Not a could, it's a shall.
Because the project was so big, right?
right.
No,
Well, no,
regardless.
because the state.
Regardless, because it's in the
The state designated the area an historic
Okay.
district
Correct. Now,
already.
let's
with it.
let's talk local. Let's talk local. Local would require a historic resources report, and it would require also for either, depending on the work being done, would require it to come before this body if it's a major work permit. A minor work permit may not.
May not.
Yeah. The reality is that I haven't had a minor work permit that I've had come before this body. Certainly, we provide them notification as well as city council as a part of the requirements of the code. And in my 3 years, I haven't had a single one that has either gone to city council or the Historic Preservation Commission. Because when staff is reviewing those, we're really looking at really kind of a small bite of the apple or the low-hanging fruit, minor things that are being done that still trigger historic, but doesn't necessarily take it to the level of a formal hearing.
Can I ask you a question? If like Barbara's example of painting her building the same color that it was already painted. So if we're in our historic district, whether it's state or city determined, and what Brian just said about the paint colors, and if it's in the deck, and then you don't need to come to get it approved because it's in the deck. I mean, if Barbara's repainting her building the same color, she doesn't have to ask anyone to repaint her building the same color. Is that correct?
No, she would. If it was a downtown local district, we would be looking at minor versus major.
So would that be
Even-
minor?
It would be minor. I would see
You
it as
still
minor.
have
Right,
to.
it would
still
be-
But
have
you
to-
would still have to go
No,
through
you-
the process.
To you,
Yeah.
but that would be,
Wouldn't come to us.
no.
But it's still the process. Once it becomes a historic district, it
That's
is
on
a
you,
process.
Lucas.
Well, here's the other piece. There's yes, I'm the big bad.
Big bad Lucas.
There's also, let's not forget about the other process, which is planning commission. Now, if it's just repainting, more than likely we would look at that as a DE as well, and then process those concurrently.
Director's exemption.
Director's exemptions. I use acronyms all the time. So those could be, and we've done that. I don't necessarily want to give it addresses, but we have done that previously, and it's been done recently in terms of the process. And those run almost concurrent for the most part. There's a little bit of overlap between the two, but yeah, the process is pretty much running concurrent.
Why did it take the post office so long to get painted?
I wasn't here for the post office.
Let me give you the answer to that, straight from Tony Thatcher. It was that Caltrans wouldn't let them put up the
Scaffolding.
The scaffolding. Caltrans
How are they
wouldn't
going
give
to do
them.
it? Every church in Italy has scaffolding on it.
Yeah,
right?
Caltrans, Tony Thatcher, because I brought that up with him. I meet with Tony at least once a month for a finance committee for the museum, and I raised that issue, and he said, no, Caltrans wouldn't give him the permit to put the scaffolding up to paint it.
I don't even know what to say about that. That's so
Randy,
frustrating.
do you know it? Okay. I'm just going by what Tony told me.
Whoa.
Can I
Another
talk
whole
timeline
group.
a second? You had said that this was going on too long. And I think, Randy, you had said, why are we still talking about this during that September 13th meeting? And the timeline is, back when everything shut down, we were getting ready to have our joint council meeting with council and HPC, and it was like March 12th, and it was like the day before the city shut down, and we'd lost our meeting. And then, all that time, Brian and Craig Walker and I, we just spent time just looking at every building and figuring out what was there before, what story it told, what era, what part, and we should come up with this map. We didn't know there was a Caltrans, so the fact that it looks the same is because Ojai's small, and you know where the historic area is. It's pretty obvious. But when we finally came back to Chambers, I had asked Lucas, can we be first? Since we were last, we were going. We ended up being last. Everybody had a meeting, planning and park and rec, and they all got to it. So we finally got there, and we finally got that 4 to 5 to start doing reach out. That was all we got an approval for, to start talking to people. So during that time, that's what we were working on. I started having conversations of, can we meet with planning? And that went on for half a year. We finally got on the July docket, and then that was the whole Mallory Way, people lined up and everywhere, and we got bumped. So then we got on the September one, finally, again. So that one is another 3 months, 4 months. We got on again, so I'm with you as far as how long it takes things to happen. We're in that too. That's why I'm trying to, I know your frustration. I'm frustrated on how long is this taking from just getting back onto council. So when we got on in September, we had those 3 things that Brian mentioned, and instead, somehow it got derailed into talking about timelines. And this timeline came into it, and those other questions didn't get answered. So let's just say they did. Let's say they didn't get derailed into the November 8th deadline, and we actually said, yes, go meet with planning. Then I would be back bugging Lucas again. Can we have a meeting with planning? Can we have a joint, can we form an ad hoc? When can that happen? And then wait until planning had room for us. And then get that joint get joint meeting with, form an ad hoc with them, and then work on, with their time schedule, our time schedule. We're not getting paid, so everybody has other responsibilities and jobs. So finally get down to the nuts and bolts of overlays and fees and anything that we can do to make this more appetizing for property owners and have them want to help us protect the downtown. Then we'd have to go back to Lucas again, ask him to put us back onto council, and then go to council and say, this is what we come up with. In the meantime, we're trying to work on our nomination, trying to get it together. We haven't nominated this yet. So we're kind of stuck in this kind of circle too of waiting to, now we have this date. We put out this one sheet and cover letter to try and explain benefits, to try to stick with what, the date that we have. But it's rushed in a way more than, because it's hurry up and wait. It's, so.
I mean,
If I could just for a moment here, I probably should have mentioned this in the beginning, because I know, Jeannie, you're kind of dancing around it. And I know Brian was alluding to it as well. When this item came before City Council September 13th, is that the date? There were 3 items that front and center for the City Council to consider, but there are also 2 other pieces that staff added, not necessarily as part of the recommendations, but 2 additional items that could be considered. One was, and they were prefaced on the fact that I'd received lots of calls from property owners asking these 2 questions. One was, why is it that I own several properties but I only get 1 vote? That was the first question. And then the second was, why is it taking so long for this process to see itself through? And I was explaining the situation. This has really been going on since pre-2018. There's been an ad hoc that's been working on this, staying neutral in terms of obviously the information, but making sure to cover both sides of the equation. And at that point, City Council looked at it and said, well, hold on a second. How many nomination forms or input have we received? And at that point, I think it was 4 or 5 pieces of information that we had received. And so council had made a determination. Well, let's do 2 things. Let's put a date on it, and then let's review it. And you
send out a ballot.
Right. I'm getting to that. So what happened was they directed staff who hadn't been working on this, obviously. I think Gina and Brian are certainly correct in that. We've been staying on the sidelines, essentially. So what ended up happening is that Friday, so the meeting was on Tuesday, that Friday meaning staff, sent out a notice to those 56 property owners that have the ability to fill out a nomination form. And identifying that they can either contact myself or they can just provide through email or through a nomination form what their position is. And then we're really giving them until the election day, which is November 8th. Taking that information, once we collect it by the 8th, taking that forward to City Council on the 13th. That was the second piece that Council had given direction on, was to have that item come back to City Council on the 13th of December. So at that point, we'll have information as to where the nomination forms sit, either supporting or opposing, via email as well. I mean, email is obviously unofficial, but it's at least showing a position. And I will have to say, at this point, I think we've received about 28 pieces of information, whether via email or nomination forms. And
since the 13th, since
we sent it out on that Friday.
Out of
56.
Out of 56.
Yeah, that could vote or not, or provide the nomination form. So it certainly is speeding it along quicker than what we had seen previous to that. And I'll just say that they keep rolling in I would say on a daily basis, basically at this point. And I know obviously all the ad hoc has provided their own piece of information that went out, I believe, last week as well. So there's two pieces of information out there for the public the property owners certainly
Well, that's,
to review and then
Parcel
ask questions. Yeah.
there is no, we're talking about 56 votes.
56
There's no public opinion vote. There's no, if we, I think, had a different timeline, there probably would be a normal outreach to the public and try and get some kind of a public opinion. I can tell you that the merchants that do not own their properties do not know this is going on. And, I think that is a whole piece of the puzzle as community development director. The community is not a part of this process. So I don't know where I'm just making that comment. I don't know where that falls. But, they're not a part of this process. It's 56 people that are determining this process. So the other thing I want to say, just while Randy's here too, is that I understand, about determining a date. The date is very confusing to me. The date is on the edge of a transition. And I'm listening to Barbara saying, look, you three sitting here really are empathetic and sensitive and understand this, but what about the next three that are sitting here, or the next three that are in city council, or the next? We don't even know. So, I find that a little compromised that we'd be making this decision just before the council changes with three people.
The night that they're being sworn in, probably, most
Well,
likely.
no,
Which is-
it's
That's not the night that they're being sworn in.
It's not even that.
the
It's
vote.
just that.
Oh, you're talking about
the-
December
the new
13th.
council.
Right.
Yeah, but don't
Oh,
you
you know
think,
what I'm
don't
saying.
you, but this
That's
this is a property owner's right to vote.
Right, and
And to even allude to bringing the public in, it would be ludicrous. I
but
mean,
no matter what you vote, it's still the city council's determination.
Yeah, but I
So-
think that, I think the city council is going to base the vote on
Well,
how
we-
many
we-
no's
we-
and how
we don't
many
know.
yeses. I mean, that was how every property owner has been led to believe that.
Well, we don't know. Randy would be able to answer that, but my point that I'm trying to make is that on the eve,
It's in the code, the guidelines.
on the eve of a 3-member transition, we are placing this important vote. I find that odd. And especially because Barbara talks about who of the next generation is going to understand this, and who of the next generation is,
That's city council.
or the next
We're
council.
mixing, we were talking about the HPC.
Well, it's
Yeah.
much more city council and planning than HPC. I mean, we are allowed to voice our opinion, correct? We
Oh,
can
we
make
all-
an opinion
we
and
all
a
are. That's what
determination.
we're
but-
doing here.
But we have no vote.
Well, the thing is, I think that this thing I think it's causing some dissension in town, and I think it's been going long enough, and I honestly think you take somebody like Dean Vadney, who's a very sophisticated property owner, extremely sophisticated. I mean, the man has headed up the Civic Center for how many years? I mean, he's a major individual. I mean, I would not tell Dean Vadney what to do, because I think Dean Vadney, owning as much property as he owns, would know the benefit of something or not. I mean, he's a bright player. I mean, he has a lot more into it than any of us do, So, I mean, I kind of trust his, the age and the amount of properties he has and everything else. And I think there's people
So-
like him.
So, while we're talking about Dean, I have talked to Dean 2 or 3 different times. I've talked to Dana, his gatekeeper,
Right.
a few more times than them. I talked to Dean just a few weeks ago, and generally what I've done is because again, I think you said this is up to the parcel owners. It's not really up to
Yes.
the
Yeah.
rest of the people. So what I did at the beginning, whether it was the right thing or not, was let me just digress. Three things I've learned in this process. never do anything during a COVID pandemic. And 2, don't do
Next
anything
time.
in summer. Well, not everybody it is, let me tell you. There's so many people popping up with COVID.
Okay, the third,
The second thing is never do anything during summer because I'm president of the museum. All other boards
Oh, we talked about that.
tend to
Come on.
take the summer off. We don't. So it's hard meeting with them and getting them to take a vote. And the third thing is don't do it during an election because as the city council is feeling right now and as staff is feeling, that clock is ticking to where, for 2 of them, they're coming off the board and they want to finish strong. And so,
well,
my
it's
mistake-
interesting, the people running, I mean, the people that I know.
Yeah,
that
I'm
are
not even going there, so.
No,
That's a
no,
whole
no,
lot-
but there are people running who do
Well, hold on,
know.
let's
Yeah,
let's
so-
not talk about
Yes.
election.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No,
we
I'm not
can't-
going to say who to
can't
vote
get
for.
into that.
I'm talking about everybody running it's not like they're in a, hovel somewhere and they aren't aware of.
So again, right or wrong, and Randy asked this question, were you planning on talking to everybody? Yeah, I was. And believe me, it's been a pleasure. I've talked to several boards, so each board has about 12 people. So I've talked to a lot of people. And it's a pleasure to do so. But summertime is just,
But not even reaching, we just talked about it this week, not even reaching the new owner of the people that own the property that I lease, which is a 5-parcel piece of property.
yes, I put
and we-
an email into him this
We
morning.
still have to.
A phone call yesterday.
But listen, this can go through, be done, put to bed, and you can come back at another point when you have got everything lined up, like you say, all your wish list of what you're working on. When you have that lined up, you can come back and go at this again. And no, but you'll be coming in at a point of strength where it won't be unknown. There will be no unknowns at that point. You can say, we absolutely have this.
But if we don't, if we're not able to move forward to see if we can get this done before that second vote where you can dissent, we're gonna, and let's just, council can decide that we don't have staff support, so we won't be able to meet with council, with planning, and we wouldn't be able to do this. So it's cutting us off at the knees of something that could really be valuable to the property owners.
Well,
We had been talking about a pause just before that September
what?
pause to see,
Pause?
because we could see that, people, I would talk to them, I would get their email address, and then they wouldn't answer call. People got busy, as Jenny was saying, people are busy, downtown they're busy, different people are busy. And we're going into the election with all of that's taking place, and so we had talked in our ad hoc about the possibility of doing a pause, and I just mentioned that to James in a conversation I think I had last week. So,
Well, and
we're in the middle of a voting deadline, and so we are reaching out and doing everything we can to meet that deadline. I emailed 17 people day before yesterday. Yesterday I phone called, and I got to tell you, we don't get phone numbers and we don't get email addresses from the city because I'm pretty sure they don't have it. So finding people's email addresses and phone numbers is interesting. I got a really nice call from a lady in Nebraska who loves historic districts. So, we're doing what we can, but it's hard. It's been,
It's hard, and it's hard too for me because, I sympathize with you as fellow Ojai people. I really do. And I think you're passionate about it, and I think you believe in it. And I am still, of the old West and want less restrictions and less form. So, I think that's where we're at. I think the town has done a really good job of staying healthily beautiful. And I don't think it's luck. I think the planning commission's very strict, and city council certainly aren't wimps. So, I don't think we need it, but I understand your passion, and I can't,
And I also want to say that, you're very present. We know you, we see you, and a lot of these property owners are not. So, I think that, to have you here talking to us about it and, being part of the conversation is really important. Unfortunately, there's no other property owners here
I know.
that are are interested enough to be a part of the conversation. And I think that, you know, that's, I mean, I'm sure that you feel the weight of that. But, you know, I think it's important that we have a property owner to have the conversation with.
Yeah, no, and I thank you for taking the time to listen to me.
Oh, this
and,
has
you know,
been
go
great.
over it. I
Thank you.
really do appreciate it. Honestly, I do appreciate it. And I think that, I think it's a hard pull. And I just think because a lot of us are old property owners, yeah, God. And we've been doing it our way for God knows when, you know. I mean, blue is one of the acceptable colors downtown. You know why?
Yeah, why?
Me.
I wondered why,
Like
I
blue?
wonder, there's
You
a
know,
shop on the
I
arcade
mean, you
that
know, a
has
lot of
blue.
the things I can go through in town are acceptable because I did them a long time
Yeah,
ago.
because when I was walking down the arcade, there's a shop that's all painted blue, and I thought, well,
The
this
shop
isn't in the
painted blue?
deck. Yeah.
Oh, no, I
But
meant like
that's
the
not-
blue trim.
Well, it's blue trim, but it's like,
Oh, yeah. No,
It's all
I started
to
that
you.
42 years ago.
So, so Barbara,
Yes.
a wise person said this to me, and this is a point I want to make, and it goes along with
Okay.
what you've said and what's been saying. So a lot of good things have happened to get us at the point we are today. I remember sitting on Sundays after church, I used to go visit David in the visitor center, and this guy came in from, I think he said he was from Irvine, and said, hey, I want to see the historic stuff. And we're like, yeah, just go out the door, make a left, and go down the street. He's like, I've seen that stuff. I want to see the real historic stuff. We're like, just go out to the sidewalk, make a left, and go down a block. Okay, I've been there, but where's the real historic stuff? That is the real historic stuff. He said, you're doing too good of a job preserving it.
Oh, how cute. Oh, that was sweet.
I
That
do-
was
That
sweet.
was.
I have
so
something-
so
oh.
what I'm going to tell you, what I'm going to suggest to you is that we are continuing that protection. We're not competing with that protection. We're
I
not
know,
we're
you're.
not replacing
you're-
it.
I
We're
understand.
continuing it. And
Brian, I know in your heart you're doing the right thing. You feel it. And
do.
trust me, I feel from my point of view as a property owner, not
Uh-huh.
as a person out here in space, as a property owner looking after my interests as a property owner, I feel very strongly about the way I feel. And I understand your passion. I do.
So I'm going to be really bold here
Yes.
and ask what would be the downside of a yes vote if you, to see what we can do, to see if we can come through on what you want, what I believe that the city needs to simplify it and to have these benefits. If you know that if it goes to council, you're going to have a dissent vote opportunity again. It would just give us the opportunity to see, is there
There is, for me particularly. I have a huge piece of property. What you see, those little shops are little dinky shops. The front, I have a huge undeveloped piece of property that would be a major project to undertake, which would create major, I would get to know everybody really well in this town. Not that I would want to.
your work permit.
Major everything.
Oh, my.
So one of the reasons is I am protecting in perpetuity my kids who will have this property and what they would be up against and what they're going to have to deal with. And I don't want to add another layer to them. That's about as straightforward as I
Yeah,
can
that's,
get.
I mean, I think that's completely understood.
Yeah.
And you said, I mean, I just said, if those things were decided, would you still be able to cast your vote? And you said yes. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, that may not be, you know, every property owner, but, you know, I think Barbara's been very, very clear about that.
Yeah, and so I have good reason. I mean, I really do.
I was
Oh,
just
yeah.
wondering, because I was just, I've always had this idea that I wanted to come and talk to you and figure out if I can make you happy, if I can make you work
Let
and
me
you
put a
tell
bunch
me
of
what's.
permits in front of you and you just be able to sign all of them.
I just want you to tell me what's
I'm kidding.
wrong, so I have all the pieces of the puzzle.
No, I know.
So what's frustrating, and so I can work on it, because that's what I want to do.
Well, the process is complicated, and it's frustrating the way it is, even without this layer. It's, as you just mentioned, Jeannie, before, it's a very frustrating thing. And, you know, when everybody gets through of it, I'm sure that the El Robler group is so happy. I'm sure David is just like, wow.
Oh, they're thrilled, yeah.
They're so
they're
happy. Now
thrilled.
that they're through, nothing bothers them.
Right.
But going through it, they were suffering. So, I mean, like I said, in perpetuity, I'm concerned about, my kids. That's it.
Okay.
And thank you for tonight. This was
Well,
a
thank
very
you.
informative
Thank
night.
you.
I
Thank you
appreciate
very
it. I
much.
appreciate you taking the time.
Well,
Thank you, Barbara.
Again, yes, thank you for being here. Very much appreciate it.
So do we have anything else that we need to discuss about this?
Well, I have one other thing I want to read into the record on this item. So, we did receive a letter last week from Tony Thatcher. That was submitted to the city, and it is a part of the city record now. And it was distributed to the commissioners, but not really accessible to the, again, thank you both for being here.
Thank you.
I don't know that it's accessible to anyone outside the city. And by the way, I checked on the planning commission and they haven't done that since July of 2022. Remember when I was saying they used to park the letters on an upcoming agenda item? They had that place where they did public comments. They haven't done it since July. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Right, I do. We have those comments. It's just a matter of uploading them at this point.
Yeah. But I'm on what I can see on the website, July. So anyway, I'm going to read what Tony Thatcher said. It's addressed to the Ojai Historic Preservation Committee regular meeting Thursday, October 13th, 2022, item number. He originally prepared this because he thought we were going to be in front of the council. My name is Anson B., and then in parentheses, Tony Thatcher, and I live outside the city boundaries at 15275 Maricopa Highway, Ojai, California, 93023. Ann and I own the easternmost proposed contributing property on the downtown historic district map issued by the Historic Preservation Commission. It's situated on the corner of Ojai Avenue and Fox Street and is currently occupied by Ojai Rote. I don't know how to pronounce that. My father-in-law built the structure there as a gas station in the 30s, and after considerable underground remediation work, it was remodeled and repurposed in the late 80s with guidance from renowned Ojai architect Zelma Wilson. Hey. Hi, Elizabeth. Ann spent the first 12 years of her life in the small house at the back of the property. We have voted yes in favor of the proposed district. When more than 110 years ago, Edward Drummond Libby promulgated and succeeded in convincing the citizens of the Ojai Valley that their somewhat ramshackle downtown area could be made over into an architecturally and artful City Beautiful project, he did a great service to those of us who followed and are fortunate to live and enjoy our iconic city center. 5 years ago, in April 2017, the Ojai Valley Museum, along with the help of the city, the Ojai Civic Association, and the citizenry of the valley enacted an event from 100 years earlier. The symbolic act of Mr. Libby handing over the deed to the post office in what we now call Libby Park to my grandfather, Sherman Thatcher, and to the newly formed Ojai Civic Association. As you know, there was no city at that juncture since we just celebrated that 100th anniversary last June. But may I remind you of your ownership of the Ojai Valley Museum, that it was also largely built and financed by Mr. Libby and the townspeople to replace the previous Catholic chapel, which had burned in the devastating fire in the fall of that same year, 1917. This nationally registered historic building, built in the same Spanish Revival architectural style, anchors the proposed district to the west. I could go on about folks such as architect Rodney Walker's and local builder Jerry Peterson's 80s remodel of the El Robler Hotel, in keeping with the downtown image as we would expect, in spite of Walker's preeminence as a glass-in open space modernist. There seems to be quite a bit of deliberate misinformation being spread around about the proposed downtown historic district. My understanding is that it protects what the external visible portions of the downtown buildings will look like and also provides access to state funds for remodeling on a competitive basis. Yes, there are many details to this conceptual building permitting in the city, but this proposal simply makes the process more transparent while protecting our precious architecturally iconic downtown area. I will not be around to envision what the southwest corner of Ojai Avenue and Fox Street will look like in 50 years, but I feel hopeful that it will still be in keeping with our forefather vision of what a city beautiful should be. Thus, my vote of yes on this proposal. So, thank you for that submittal, Tony. Anything else we want to bring up on item number 4?
There was something that I was listening to you and now I forgot.
I mean, we have nothing to vote on, it's all discussion, right?
No, I mean,
Maura,
we are planning to hopefully ask for an extension at least to a month, like to December, so we have a little, it's not election day, because you aren't meeting. I mean, at the last council meeting, you canceled the 2 meetings in November and 1 meeting in December, so you only have 1 in October and then 1 in December, and that December 13th is already going to be really packed with our HPC awards, with the hopefully the new council members there and all the other stuff you have to do. So since there isn't going to be a meeting in November, can we have an extension into December? So at least to December. So that's what we'd kind of like to keep in there.
So on you're talking about an extension from what date?
November 8th?
Okay, so the November 8th date,
Uh-huh.
which was the date that City Council had put on as the kind of the hard date for the vote.
It was.
Well, nomination. I hate calling it vote. I
yeah.
mean, it is.
We didn't
but
say vote until you guys started saying
Sorry,
vote, so.
I know.
I always say ballot.
It is the nomination. Well, it's not a ballot though. That's the other thing.
Oh.
If it is, it's a nomination form. That's really
Okay,
I
there we
try to
go.
use that term a lot.
And that's what you call the form that the property owners received.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Nomination.
For the camera.
Certainly, this body can make recommendations and forward those on to City Council for consideration. That is within your power,
Yes, and that's what we hope
and
to-
we're within the item that allows for that too. So
Yeah, that's, yeah. So, yes, that's something that we hope to do. Again, we only have 1 meeting left, and it will be,
but yeah, you're bringing up a good point, and that is really the only meetings where this could be discussed by City Council would be the meeting on the 25th. The meetings in November have been canceled, and really you're looking at 1 meeting in December. I think
Right.
it's the 13th, which is the date in which this item is
awards.
coming back.
Yes.
Well, the
Oh,
item
yes.
for the 3
yeah,
asks. Yeah.
it is. Yeah, according to the deadline. So,
So would there be then follow-up with the property owner?
Microphone, please.
Yeah. Is your microphone on or get? Yeah.
Should that nomination date change, would there then have to be follow-up with the property owners?
Yes, because then there would have to be another notice going out
Right.
by staff, certainly.
Okay.
And it would be up to the council as whether or not they want to have staff spend additional resources and time on it at this point.
So in keeping with that, a report on the different ad hocs. So I'll let Gina can maybe talk about what actually went out to everybody last week. That was a concerted effort of the this is the line I'm walking. I kind of feel like the guy walking on the wires there on the Golden State, on the Golden Gate Bridge with an arm tied behind his thing, because we're walking such a tightrope and talking about these ad hocs. And so I will let you know that the thing we put out, I actually put a self-addressed stamped envelope on there so that we would get it back. If they were sending there's an envelope inside here that goes directly to you. So I only get this back if it doesn't work.
Yep.
And-
So we have been getting letters.
Oh, have you been
We've been getting mail. Yes.
With
Okay.
Brian's Christmas stamps on there?
Yes. Holiday festivities and all.
You can tell
I
it was
re-
out of our pocket
I
expenses.
ran out of stamps. I thought I had enough stamps at Rite Aid. I ran out of stamps Sunday night at 11:30. I called over to the Shell station. I said, please, do you guys sell stamps? No. The only stamps I could find in the house was Christmas stamps. And so you can see this is a Christmas stamp on the front. I thought, hey, it's early, but somebody
It's our
will have a laugh.
homespun town,
So that's why the Christmas stamps. So we did send those out. Again, it had, the 2 sheets of paper in it. I did I got the envelopes addressed, and then Gina and her daughter sent them out in the next 2 days. But again, there's the 2, I'm sorry I'm upstepping you, but there's the 2 sheets that are in our package tonight, as well as the, not ballot, the whatever you, nomination form, with a envelope in it that is addressed directly to you. And I think it has that. Again, walking the tightrope, you'll appreciate that this says City of Ojai HP Ad Hoc Committee. So I guess that's what again, it only comes back to me if it's not working. Okay, so all ballots go directly to
And
you.
strangely, that's the Lavender Inn. How did we get a
This
wrong
is the
address on that?
Lavender I just saw it when I
Only
got
one
home
came
today.
back.
So far, yes.
Yeah.
People that I've contacted, as soon as I contact them, I get their email address, because then I was sending them out the full packet that had the information, had the map, had the link to the video in the preface. It originally said to send all of their forms to you. That kind of got delayed because they would put them in the mailbox at the museum. So I get all the email address. I sent another letter out to them just as a follow-up to our the 2 envelopes we sent out last week. People that I hadn't visited, and that was about 17 of the parcel owners. People that I hadn't visited, I looked up phone numbers, white pages app, just in case people think they can't be found. And then had to ask them for their email addresses, because I'm not sure. And so once I got their email addresses, then I sent that same package out to them. And so I've been sending those out. So we are doing, and Commissioner Convery, who's not here tonight, but has been reaching out to people also in the community to make that link. So we are doing, yes, we are asking for a deadline, but no, we are not sitting back thinking we're going to get that and not working. So as Mara knows, we've been down for 4 days with our 1 and 4-year-old grandsons. Fortunately, that 1-year-old takes lots of naps, and that gives us time away, and the 4-year-old's at preschool. So it's been very productive. But
Want me to go
and for the
over?
folks out there, I hope you love the Christmas stamps. Yes, Jean.
So this is a 2-page document. Actually, it was 3 because it had the nomination form in it. And then it had a return envelope that went back to you. And the first one was written by Craig Walker. It was just explaining the timeline of what we're asking for. And then it was edited by Brian and myself. And then the second one was created by Brian and I from the 30 questions. So there's no new information in here. We just went from the 30 questions and decided, well, if it's stripped down, we're on a timeline now, the clock is ticking. So what is it that, because that document, 30 questions, went to everybody. It was like, it went back as far as, it was, when it was built, when it was made, it was when all the stuff was going on with the school district. So it was like, what's the timing because of that? And it was like, so a lot of it was suddenly dated. So we started looking at, well, what did they need to know? And it's basically what I asked from Barbara. If you're going to, if you can give us this opportunity to try to make it worth your while and why it's important. And, we just sent it out with a little prayer and a Christmas stamp and
To the
hoping for
property
the
owners.
best. To property owners, to the 57 envelopes. There was
Well, it is, but the sheet that we got was 77, so keep that in mind. We didn't get the 56 one until
There were
earlier this week.
I believe there were some duplicates on that.
Yeah, I think
And
the
there were
duplicate was the
duplicates, so-
same. There was a New York address and an Ojai address, and I think that one made it 57 because it went out to.
Yeah, we figured that out because Sane VEG bought this little interesting house just to the north of that corner. I have walked every parcel.
Me too.
So those 2 forms went out. Again, my follow-up is with people to a twofold. One is to answer any questions they may have, because of course people are confused. I got this envelope on the 16th from you. I got this information from the HPC ad hoc last week. I'm confused. And so trying to reach out them on that, and you know, the people that I had just spoken with to get their email address, because they all agreed that it was better to get an email than a phone call, unannounced phone call. So we're doing that, and then we wanted to get the letter from Tony Thatcher out, because Tony's well known in the valley. He is an owner of one of the parcels, and what he says counts with people. So that's what we're doing. Again, we're doing everything we can to meet the current deadline. The extension of the deadline would just give us the opportunity to perhaps follow up with people that, you know, we're busy, or organizations we haven't been able to get back in with yet.
Or if they have questions and we're
They
still
do.
trying to answer them.
Yeah, I'm still trying to get in on some of the groups that took the summer off.
Before we get into now we're off for the Thanksgiving and Christmas holidays. Trying to figure out when yeah, between summer and, so we have this little sweet spot right in the middle. We're trying to contact everybody.
So anything else then on item number 4?
If there isn't anything, then before we go on to item number 5, you might want to just address the Ojai Jail
Oh, there we go. Thank
Arts
you.
Initiative.
Wait,
People
wait.
that have
We can't
no,
address
that's
them
fine.
until we get the proper attire. I didn't. Someone watched that
Yes, you should
T-shirt,
take
and
a
I'm not
picture.
as small as I thought. So
He only does it for the YouTube.
So, Chair Akins, would you like to
I
address
would.
them, or would you like staff
Elizabeth
to?
and Ted, if you could please come up, and we reserve the. I will tell you that we unanimously agreed. We didn't, not a vote. We unanimously agreed that the three of us support the extension of a week, and we were hoping for you to come back and.
Yes. Well, I mean, I will say as well, it's funny, okay, we are late because we had a field trip with Thatcher, which went really well, and they came over and saw the
wow.
art, and we're
Great.
very engaged. We're seeing Nordhoff tomorrow morning, so things are going well. We are also realizing that perhaps extending the show might be more difficult just because we need so much more volunteer labor to continue it. So we're gonna see how we feel the next few days, see what kind of energy we can gather, and then make the decision. So I just wanted to
We're thinking about maybe just keeping it to its original run, which was, we're
yeah.
thinking about maybe keeping it to its original run, which we think was well designed, and we've had a lot of engagement, a lot like more people coming through per day than maybe we anticipated, which is great, but also maybe not the capacity or the need to extend it
True.
more.
Yeah, because
And
we
this
were.
weekend's also going to be a lot of really busy, I think.
Well, the one thing that we talked about was that, you know, because it's this weekend and people are seeing it, and there's the artist talk that, you know, there's people that might want to come back and
That's
bring
true.
bring a
Yeah.
friend. So, you know, that's like your, you know, typical museum PR, like 2% of the people that come through when there's an event will come back.
Sure.
Yeah.
So we thought that was valid and important, and it's important, you know, to us. But if you decide to end it as, you know, originally intended, then that's understood too.
Yeah.
Cool.
We have to
Yeah.
figure
Randy,
out
you know what we're
we have to
talking
figure out
about?
the volunteer schedule.
Okay.
Yes, let us.
Randy, did you go?
Pardon me?
Have you seen the jail project?
No.
You'll have to
because
come
I'm
and see
in the
us.
Process, but I know, I thought you were giving them a week extension, and I said to myself, well, I think it's Saturday. What are we giving them a week extension for if it has to be ready and prepared for Saturday? And now I'm thinking that there's something greater going on.
Yeah,
Yeah,
there's
yeah.
something greater going on, and please walk down and see it, because it's a very, very special project.
Thank you.
Yeah, we'll be there all day tomorrow, noon to 5.
Yeah, or
So-
earlier even.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that you have schools coming down for projects.
We've had 3 school groups so far, and it's been really fun. Yeah. A
Yeah.
lot of young people, generally, a lot of kids.
Definitely.
Are you teachers?
No, actually.
We're artists.
You're artists?
Yeah.
Yes, yes, and we've met.
Artistes.
What?
Artistes.
artiste,
Sure,
exactly. And
sure.
we've met a bunch of people who have jail history and direct stories and things like that. So that's been really interesting as well.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And Randy, I mentioned this to James, but to you too. I like to, where praise is deserved, share that. Alexis there at the facilities has worked great with
We love
us.
Alexis has been great. Yeah.
And very helpful in the transition on the key and making sure they get in. And that's good because I was out of town the last 4 days.
Also, the zine, I really enjoyed that. I think it's just a beautiful job.
Thank
But
you.
do you mind if I put some of it on our Facebook page just so that people know
Oh, yeah,
what's
sure,
going
sure.
on? Okay.
And if you want to, we'll bring some copies in that you guys can just have in distro. Additionally, I have the PDFs of the zine all online. So if in future the artist has given full permission for it to be reproduced by anyone, Creative Commons ad infinitum. So if you ever want to do another printing of it for any future jail openings or jail
absolutely.
stuff, you can totally do that, and I can give you all
Great.
the materials too. Yeah.
New York Times
Thank
did
you.
not.
How did you fund this?
New York Times did not.
Through the Arts
We
Commission.
had a grant from the Arts Commission, and we also did fundraising locally.
It's
We
the
sold
time
art
And music
and music.
and
Yeah.
an event.
hopefully the New York Times Journal.
Yeah, so it's fundraised from the community.
But yes, we just want to make sure we came by and checked in with
Thank you.
everyone.
Thank you
Yeah.
for stopping by.
Thank
course.
you guys so much for the
Great.
support. We really appreciate it. I'm sorry that we were late on our.
It's okay, it worked out.
See you Saturday.
Okay, that was item number 2.
And now,
I-
sorry.
I'm sorry.
I just have a question about them. So,
Microphone, please.
Brian's sketch.
how did that end? They're gonna let us know if they extend it?
Well, I think
or-
the commission has granted them, given them their blessing to go on for an extended week. And I think if they choose not to go on for an extended week, I think that's fine. Or that is fine. They can end on the day that they were scheduled to,
Okay.
which is Sunday, the 16th. But
So,
also, I think if they wanted a couple days, I think that would be an option as well.
but how are we gonna know what they decide? Are they
I
gonna
don't
tell you
think that,
guys?
I don't think we need to know. I don't think they
Well,
need to
just,
report.
I mean, I'm distributing the zine and people are in my shop every day. I'm just wondering whether we should just let it be loose.
So they've generally been really good about letting me know what's going on.
Okay, then we'll
Part
do
of
that.
it was I used to have, they would call and say, you have to get in the jail. I'd go to Lexus, get the key and bring it over. But,
Okay.
yeah, they've been keeping
Well,
me.
we'll see how it goes this weekend then, because I mean, I've been sending so many people to see it with the zine.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I've been passing it, what I find out along tomorrow.
Yeah, we've been working with a writer for the New York Times who, was very interested, but had some issue with the date, it's such a short date. But they might be coming on Sunday, and Santa Barbara Magazine did something, and Ojai Quarterly did something, the paper did 2 things, and Vortex, a bunch of people online did stories too. But the Sunday event, I just want to say, is also open to the public with the artist speaking, and involves an art journal as well. So for the public out there, that's a big event.
So I think on Saturday, that's certainly an opportunity when we're all going to be there, you're going to be there, and to communicate with them that you're letting other people know out in the world that they're extending it. And so if they're not going to extend it,
Right.
maybe
Or just what they decide, yeah.
right. And I can also send out an email. It's just, however, if they don't know right now, which doesn't sound like they know what's happening, but we can nail them down
Okay.
perhaps on Saturday.
Okay,
On to number.
So anything on
5?
5? Do you
Well-
have something on 5 there?
Well, it's the future agenda items, and so, as
Oh,
we've
yeah.
all been talking about over and over, this Saturday, October 15th, is Ojai Day, and then on November 10th, which is your next meeting, there'll be a report on Ojai Day, that you'll be giving us a report on Ojai Day.
Yes.
And there hopefully will be a debrief on the Ojai Jail Arts Initiative, and I will invite them back.
Mm.
And also, we'll have we have a tentative item for a sign at 212 East Ojai Avenue, and one of our commissioners, Commissioner Prebor, will have to, what is it called? Recuse.
I mean,
No,
do I
if you
post
want
it out
to-
there as the submitter of the,
You are the applicant, or actually, I believe Vanessa Sanchez is the applicant, and so the applicant and, of course, the store owner have an opportunity to speak as a member of the public, just not, you will not speak as a member of the commission.
but
Or
should-
vote, right.
Should we both should she and I both be available to answer questions?
It's always good to have an applicant present for an item. And right now, those are the items that we have as tentative future items.
Great, excellent, thank you.
Welcome.
Okay, item number 5?
That was 5.
Yes,
That was
Yep.
5.
so, yeah, I was just crossing through it. Okay, planning report? Yes. I do want to compliment you on the minor work permit. That was 100 and something pages. And why do I want to compliment you? Because that was, when you send something out like you did, I immediately download it to the museum archive because it has all of the information. And just as a matter of information, the 1927 photos that are in that package in the Historic Resources report, I got from Randy knows the Wilsons that lived there. So when they were leaving, they showed me those, and they gave me permission to copy them and put them in the Ojai Valley Museum archives. And they are amazing.
What item in your packet had that many pages?
The jacuzzi,
Oh, okay.
yeah, that's,
700.
yeah,
San Antonio.
it's a landmark Westways.
Right.
It's a beautiful house.
Okay, yeah,
Beautiful
that's right, a
grounds.
minor work permit. Yep,
Yeah,
sorry, threw me
I'm
off
like,
there.
100 pages, and then I looked at it, I'm like, oh, this is candy to me. They did give me permission to walk the grounds, in very historical grounds.
Nice, nice.
Okay,
It is
so
a
thank you for
beautiful
that.
site.
Anything else on planning?
So as far as the administrative or staff report to you, that was just part of the discussion earlier, going over what happened at the September 8th meeting that I presented earlier. That opened up the downtown local historic district
right.
discussion.
Okay, thank you.
So that's all from staff tonight.
Okay, great, thank you. Commissioner
Funny.
comments.
Oops.
So I will remind you that I talked to Gail, not the last council meeting, but the council meeting before that, and she said that they have the HPC Awards on the council agenda for October 25th meeting.
Yeah, I think we can pin that in at this point. Yeah. I expect you to be there.
I will be there on
Okay.
the 25th.
Good. The other thing I wanted to mention, and I'm sorry, I arrived here late, and I'm not sure if this was mentioned, but we received notice yesterday that Commissioner, has that already been mentioned?
Well, actually,
James, yes.
Yeah, Commissioner James has resigned effective yesterday. So that process has started, and we've already reached out to Gail and to the council member that would have that opportunity to fill that seat.
So if we have recommendations of people that may be interested, who can we talk to?
You could have that conversation with Gail to start, but there's typically an application process. We fly that through the paper. Filling a seat versus a seat ending their term, I think, is two different ways. This is only about halfway through.
Well, that's how I came in, so
Yeah, so
I did talk to Gail about that, when I was going through it.
Right, the process for filling that seat would be the previous council person that brought that person in, or at least voted them for that to continue. So that's where that process is at currently.
Yeah, so I mentioned earlier when we took roll call. just
Sorry,
so
I didn't realize that, but I think
people
it's
would know
important
that-
to at least
no,
note that
it
during
is.
this part of it.
That last part's important about
Yeah.
budget. So there will be a, listing in the paper and posted.
Yeah, I'll have to double check with Gail in terms of when that's going to go out. So I'll get confirmation on that.
And what I've suggested in the past is that people, if they're interested, send information into Gail, just so that she knows that there's someone out there, and maybe they missed the paper advertisement. Okay.
I did want to, just a little quick, thank you for the plexi and the screen open. It's nice to be in chambers again. It's been a long time.
Who hasn't been here since how long?
February 2020.
Commissioner Patton and I talked, we've never seen each other.
Yeah, I've been a Zoom figure for years now.
I remember that meeting.
So thank you for making this happen.
Let's see. So, Randy, I'm guessing you're our liaison. Thank you for being here tonight.
My right leg just gets locked up and it.
Oh.
So I make a bunch of notes and,
Okay.
So I hope they'll be scattered. That's who I am.
Welcome to the HBC.
So the last thing that you talked was appointing, and I'm the appointing council member. I know that we have one application on file. So if you know anyone, I would suggest you have them contact Gail and get an application in ASAP. That's the first thing. I sat for 3 years on an ad hoc committee for cultural resources. 3 years. In the second year, we thought it was over because we couldn't come to a conclusion. And we had wore each other out. And there was not hatred, but there was strong dislike. And we disliked the process because there was none. We were just shooting from the hips and trying to figure something out. And then we regrouped because I'm not a quitter. And we came back for the last year, and that's when we really worked as a group because we wanted to succeed versus fail. And we did, and we think we got a pretty good product. So that takes me to the dilemma that you're in. I looked on your paper. You guys started your ad hoc committee in April of 2019. Pretty sure that's what it started in your history. So you're in your third year. The difference is we sat for monthly meetings and came into chamber. They were Brown Act meetings, and public could come. And it was long, tenuous. I feel that you guys are doing more of this on your own versus having a lot of public input. So that makes it even harder.
It was COVID.
And that too.
When did it?
Right. So for me, and this comes back to process, which I find interesting in a city council meeting. What happens is you're given, just like you, an agenda. And then you start the meeting, and the next thing you know, something could be taken over. And something happens, and the next thing you know, instead of you're talking about what's in front of you, you're taking a left, and now you're talking about something over here. And it's interesting how that happens. So discussions happen in a vacuum in the moment. And I think the process needs to change. And I think what has to happen, and if I win, I'm going to push for this new process. And that is that when we agendize a discussion item or an action item, we take the public comments, we take staff's comments, and council would deliberate. Then we would continue it or bring it back 2 weeks later. First of all, we're not in that moment where we're feeling pressure either from fellow council members or from the 50 or 100 people that show up anxious, angry, hostile, and want their problem solved in the moment. because that creates, it doesn't make for good governance. So if you have time to take the complete process of deliberation and slow it down, and then bring it back, and you don't have to take public comment again. What you can do in that 2-week period is reach out to the public that has talked to you and talk to your heart the deepest. And they in turn have the opportunity to come back to you if you've talked to their heart and they want more of your understanding of your position on a subject. Then you come back and now you have one more opportunity to deliberate, then you make a decision. I don't know about you guys, but that sounds a better way than trying to make a decision, sometimes in a hostile environment, sometimes in a rushed environment. Imagine the night that you came to us and we put pressure on you, and I know I did, Brian. In fact, we talked afterwards. I get caught up in the moment too, and I get emotional, and I get, I want it my way, and I want it my way right now. And that's just not good. That's not a good way to lead, much less a good way to make policy. But if we had had that 2-week period, we could have came back and listened to each one of you privately, and you could have maybe made your case as to why you needed more time to do this, or how can we work better with staff? Because what you just did, you just threw staff onto us in the middle of the process. And now we've got to think through how we're going to reprocess the process so that we can get your due date, which is the 25th, which is almost impossible. So it's just not any way to make good policy. So we've got to figure this out. We got to figure out a better way, and it may be even the process for the commissions too. Especially planning, because they make some very difficult decisions. And again, for council, I know that we do too. So there's a better way. On your issue, I think what you need to do, my suggestion is for the body to reach out to each council person and let them know where you are and what struggles you're in and why you need more time. And then you can get Lucas to write your report, and we could get something sent out to council prior to the meeting, and so that we have an opportunity to evaluate this and say, maybe we can't make this decision on the 25th.
I did ask Brian for everyone's contact information, and I started already doing that, so I'm going to continue.
So we don't have to make a bad decision in a tight time frame, just so that a couple council people that are leaving or may not get voted back get to say, I did that. And I think that's important. So I think you got great staff. Mm-hmm. You guys are dedicated. In fact, I'm going to talk to that in a second too, and you guys want the right results. You don't want the result, you want the best result. And you got to figure out as a community, what is that? What does that look like? Okay? So then I want to get back into, we were talking earlier about how to, Ryan Blatt said it. Why do we need a downtown historic district when, if you look at pictures from 100 years ago and you look at them today, they haven't changed? We're in good shape here. We don't need it. That's probably a pretty valid point. That doesn't get to what you guys are talking about and you guys are trying to bring into the picture. And that's the benefits that might bring into having a district and then having to be able to mills your property and to get some other different benefits, other than less taxes you give us or less taxes that we have to spend in the community. But I don't think it's that much money. So I keep hearing this phrase, and I've heard it for 28 years. Let's keep Ojai, Ojai. And I was writing a letter to the editor the other day, and I had put that in it. And then my wife says to me, she goes, okay, explain it. And you got to remember, I'm 68 years old, and I've been coming to that lake for 60 plus years. And I didn't even know this little community existed until 28 years ago. Or maybe it did and I couldn't remember it. But we drove in at night and drove out at night. You know, we maximized that daylight and that sunlight, you know, because my parents had very limited time. And we weren't coming in here, we could spend more time out there. So, but what keeps Ojai? History, community, our values, and respect. I don't think I could, you know, I get goosebumps saying that. I don't think I could say that any better. And that's what we have, and that's who we are. And when someone new comes in, that's what we tell them that they have to get that. They've got to respect our community. They've got to see our Ojai values. They've got to look at our history. And they got to assimilate into our community as fast as they can. I remember this. I was driving by Joe's Market one day taking my son to school, and I waved to someone, and they waved back, and my son, he's 10 years old, and he goes, "Dad, you must know everybody." And I go, "No, son, I just waved to everybody." Because that's the Ojai way. We just look people in the eye, we're friendly, we're considerate, we're caring, and we want you to be the same when you come here and when you move here, when you are a part of us here. So that's what keeps Ojai. The movie theater. Let's just tell David this community wants its popcorn and movie theater back. Just tell him, let's get it done. You know, I know that he's doing something grand, which is, you know, God bless him. But you know what the community wants? We want popcorn and movies. Okay? Time extension, public discourse. And I guess lastly, and because I know I say this all the time, and I really mean it, and it's important, you guys are dedicated, as are all of the commissioners that we appoint. And we don't take those appointments lightly. We want people that are dedicated, that are thoughtful, that have some understanding of the commission they're being put on, so that they can contribute and not distract. And so you three, in fact, I knew that Valerie had resigned. When I saw Cynthia not here, I went, and then I thought I was hearing that 2 people had resigned, and I went, we lost 2. But, so Valerie understood historic preservation. We're gonna miss her. I'm hoping that whoever comes forward through the paper or through voices from you, that we can find someone that's gonna come in and be able to contribute to what you four as a body are doing, and they can just come right in and just blend in and just keep moving forward with you guys. So that's all I have. Again, great job, and hopefully I'll see you next year.
Thank you, Randy.
Randy, I'd like to walk you out if I can. Can I walk you? I just want. This is a separate issue. It's a Drown Street issue. I'm a Drown property owner, and you had mentioned something about going back to them, and I just want to be, whoever them is, I want to be one of them, because I am one of them. So I just wanted to kind of get into your neighbor. I'm a Drown Street resident for the last 20 years, so I just want to.
So what we're going to do is Elizabeth and David, I'm drawing a blanket, Silva, have kind of been heading this. I'll get your number, I'll pass it on, and I know we're going to try and have a meeting next week.
Great. I'd like
And we're just talking about, they've done some very interesting designing. My goal initially was, let's just get it paved and get it fixed so it's safe. But speeding is a big issue. As I'm canvassing, that speeding and getting our streets fixed are the 2 biggest subjects. That when I ask the citizens, what can I do for you? Slow it down and get them fixed. It's real simple. So yeah, I'll get hold of you. I'll introduce you to the group.
Perfect.
And they're all good people, and everyone's intentions are good. And like I said, speeding is the big issue there. And obviously, the road condition is horrible. You know that.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
Okay. All right. Thank you, guys.
Thanks for being here, Randy. We very much appreciate it. And I love that they record the meetings because then I can take less notes. I can watch them over and over and over again.
I just want to say one thing, that what Randy said about, coming back and forth to the lake and then finding the community and being here 28 years ago. I just really want to say that, not everyone is a Thatcher and has been here for generations. And everyone at some point is new and makes this big commitment to this community. And, when I bought my property, it was the summer of 2009. And, we did exactly the same thing. Started a business, made a commitment to an historic property, started a business, kids in school, husband on the music board, music festival board, on and on and on. You can name 20 other things, which so many different people do. And I think that we forget that everyone was new at some point. And like you said, I mean, they're making the same commitment to this. They find this community, they're making a commitment to this community. And someone was walking down the street, the arcade, the other day, and she didn't live here. And she said, why does everyone wave to me? She said that, Randy. And I was like, you know what? I felt the same way the first time I came here. I felt very, very welcome the first time I came here. So.
The biggest thing I struggle with is when I hear they're from LA, because we're all from somewhere. And it's just sad because it takes some people longer to acclimate than it does others. But what we have to do is we have to be the group that embraces them. We're the ones that have to talk to them about what we do, why we do it, how we've been so successful as a small community. You just don't walk in the front door knowing what to do or how to do it. So it's up to us as a community to not, just not make someone feel unwelcome.
Well, I agree.
It just doesn't.
Where was Libby from?
Yeah, I'm not going to go down that path because I've done some history about that internally, and it's not something I want to share. But it's just important that we share that and that when we overhear someone and they're having a conversation and you hear someone say how someone said that to them. Well, you're from LA, you don't know. And it's like, God, you just want to go, excuse me, let me tell you something. I was from LA. And you know what? I've been here 28 years. The first thing I did when I got here, I got started. I got involved. And that's what I would tell anyone that's new here. I got my son into youth sports. I started coaching. I've coached 14 years at the high school. Joe DeVito, the ex-mayor, ex-councilman, walked around the tract. I said, Joe, how can I get more involved in the community? And he said, there is an opening on the Rec and Parks Commission. And you just ask and you go do. And that's what I've done. And that's what all of you have done. And if you don't live in our community, that's what you do in your community. You become a person of action so that you can contribute. Who wants to be a taker?
And in reference to Ramin, who we've been talking about, that's what he did when he came and he saved that historic house. He came and he saved the Libby house.
Right.
And he was doing something important. And for him to be dismissed in the way that he was is, embarrassing to us as a community. And, thank God he's still here and he's still doing something important.
Right.
So thank you for mentioning that.
Okay, thank you, Randy. Anything else? I don't have a gavel. No gavel. Okay.
That's the gavel? Why don't you have your gavel?
Bring my David gavel.
We used to leave the gavel up here, didn't we?
I don't know what.
We'll get you
I'm bringing
your
my.
own gavel.
I've got a David Mason.
Now we know
gavel.
what to get you.
So